Stop scrolling and look closely at these 5 pennies. Most people spend these without a second thought, but for a collector, these specific dates, 1964D, 1965, 1970, and 1972, are absolute gold mines. But there is one coin here that stands above them all. The 1969 penny is the ultimate prize in this group, and some versions are worth a staggering fortune. Whatever you do, do not skip this video. If you miss the hidden details on this 1969 penny, you could be throwing away life-changing money. You need to see exactly what to look for. Let's dive into the secrets of these 5 rare coins, starting with the legendary 1969. Let's go. There's a piece of copper sitting in a forgotten cigar box in your grandfather's attic right now that could pay off your mortgage. Not someday. Not in a fantasy. This year. There is a single cent, a penny most people walk past if it fell on the sidewalk, that the current market has quietly valued at $9 million. Not a misprint. Not a rumor from a forum. $9 million. And the terrifying part? You may have already held it in your hand and spent it on a pack of gum. We are going to walk you through the exact coin, why it shouldn't exist, how to identify it, and what you must never, ever do if you find it. But I need to warn you, the reality of this coin is so improbable that by the end of this video, you might find yourself sprinting to the nearest bank to tear open rolls of pennies. Stay with me, because the difference between a lifetime of stress and absolute freedom is stamped into the metal of a 1964 Lincoln cent. Let's rewind the clock. It is 1964. Lyndon B. Johnson is in the White House, the Beatles have just landed in America, and the United States Mint is in chaos. The price of silver is skyrocketing. People are hoarding silver certificates, melting down dimes and quarters, and the Treasury is scrambling. In the middle of this metallic panic, the Denver Mint is pounding out billions of Lincoln Memorial cents. You know the design. Lincoln's stoic profile on the front, the tiny D mint mark just below the date denoting its birthplace. It's the most common currency of the working class. By design, a 1964 D cent is supposed to be worth exactly 1 cent. It is supposed to be mundane. But what if I told you the United States government, in the fog of a coinage crisis, accidentally loaded a planchet, a blank disc of metal, into the wrong press? Not a copper press. A press designed for silver. Suddenly, your boring penny isn't copper. It's 90% silver. And it is illegal contraband that slipped out the back door of the Denver Mint. Look at your penny collection right now. I'm going to pause for a second here, because this is a pattern interrupt that could change your life. Have you ever actually weighed your 1964 pennies? I mean, really weighed them on a jewelry scale? Most people don't. Most people see the date and yawn. But a standard copper Lincoln cent weighs exactly 3.11 grams. It has a distinct, soft reddish-orange ring when you drop it on a wooden table. You're familiar with the sound, it's the sound of poverty, a dull thud. But the 1964 D silver transitional era. It weighs 2.5 grams. It feels wrong in your palm. It doesn't clink, it sings with a high-pitched, almost glass-like chime. If you drop a silver dime next to a copper penny, they sound like 2 different instruments. The silver penny sings the note of a retirement fund. If your 1964 D penny has a bright white, chrome-like edge with absolutely no copper stripe, sit down. Take a deep breath. You might be holding the reason your bank account is about to change area codes. Now, this is where your brain wants to relax. I know human psychology, and I know you're thinking, well, I've never seen a silver penny, so I probably don't have one. That's your amygdala trying to protect you from the excitement of possibility. We have to fight that instinct. The fear of missing out should be screaming louder than the fear of being wrong. Because the coin worth $9 million isn't the silver one. That's just the appetizer. The silver version is a rarity, yes, a six-figure prize that buys a nice house. But the $9 million monster? That's something so darkly elegant, so technically impossible, that it took decades for the collecting community to even believe it existed. We're talking about the 1964 D-piece dollar, struck on a cent planchet. I know that sounds like jargon. I promise you, it's the most beautiful mistake the government ever made. They took the massive design of a silver dollar, a coin that should be 38.1 millimeters wide, and somehow, impossibly, rammed that die into a tiny 19 millimeter penny blank. Pause for a moment and visualize that. It's like taking a monster truck tire and trying to squeeze it onto a unicycle. The pressure was so immense, the strike so violent, that the detail bled off the edges. The coin doesn't look like a penny, it looks like a portrait of Lincoln screaming into the void, surrounded by the ghostly fragments of a giant eagle meant for a dollar coin. If you find this, the date, 1964, might be partially chopped off. The D mint mark might be floating in a sea of distorted copper. It looks like an error. It looks damaged. And 99.9% of people who saw it would throw it back into the coin jar thinking it was garbage. That is the tragedy. The most valuable relic of the 20th century is currently masquerading as trash. You need to ask yourself the uncomfortable question, have you ever thrown away a weird-looking penny because you assumed it was destroyed? Think before you answer. That split-second decision, throwing away the ugly coin, might have been the most expensive mistake of your life. Let's transition from the macro history to the micro details, because this is where the algorithmic journey for the treasure hunter truly begins. We are going to bridge the gap between $1 million dream and the tangible reality of a magnifying glass. You can't find what you don't understand, so let's look deeper into the abyss of the 1964 D mint mark. The year 1964 was a pivot point. It was the last year of true silver coinage for dimes and quarters, but it was also the end of an era for the cent. The mint was exhausted. The dies used to strike the coins were overused, polished, and abused. This created something spectacular, the 1964 DRPM, or repunched mint mark. Get your loupe out. Look at the D. Is there a shadow? A slight doubling that isn't machine doubling, but a true secondary D peeking out like a ghost from behind the primary one? That means a worker at the Denver Mint literally punched the D into the steel die twice, in slightly different positions. It's a fingerprint of human fatigue. Now, are RPMs worth 9 million? No. But a high-grade, fully read 1964 D/D RPM can fetch thousands. And here is the transition point, the climax of the hunt. Finding $1,000 RPM isn't the end goal. It's the bait. It's the proof that the Denver Mint was making catastrophic mistakes that year. If they couldn't even punch a D in straight, what are the odds they grabbed a silver planchet? What are the odds they loaded a piece dollar die? The presence of one error validates the possibility of the other. Every roll of pennies you search that contains a minor error is screaming at you, you're getting warmer. But I have to pull you back. I promised urgency, and I'm about to deliver a dose of fear that should make your hands shake. There is an existential threat to your wealth right now. It's you. It's the cleaning cloth. It's the bottle of Tarn-X under the sink. If you find a 1964 penny that is unnaturally shiny, or dull gray, or looks like a weird silver color, do not, I'm going to repeat this slowly, do not rub it with a cloth. Do not dip it in ketchup. Do not use a pencil eraser on it. I've seen a man turn a $400,000 coin into a $15 paperweight because he wanted to see the shine better. The professional grading services, the ones guarding the gates of $1 million auction, are not impressed by shiny. They want original skin. They want the untouched, decades-old patina. That toning is a fingerprint of authenticity. When you scrub it, you don't just wipe away dirt, you wipe away the proof that it's real. You shave off a layer of metal. You commit financial suicide on a microscopic level. In the world of the 1964D silver cent, the difference between a coin graded MS-65 and a coin labeled clean genuine isn't just a difference in grade, it's the difference between a new Ferrari and a bus pass. You must resist the urge. Put it in a non-PVC plastic flip. Lock it up. Breathe. And call an attorney. I'm not joking. A find like this legally transforms you into a high net worth individual overnight, and you need a fence around your assets before you even whisper the word eBay. Let's talk about the exit. This is where excitement meets reality. Hypothetically, you've found the unicorn. You're staring at a 1964 Lincoln cent struck on a silver dollar planchet, or a 90% silver transitional strike. You're feeling invincible. The market is screaming $9 million. So, what do you do? Do you post it on Facebook Marketplace? Do you stroll into your local coin shop where the guy offers you $50 and a wink? The stakes are too high for sentimentality. You are now a dealer of dream logic. The coin celebrity lifestyle you want, the black card, the debt-free existence, the country club membership, it doesn't come from a quick flip on Instagram. It comes from pedigree. You need to send this coin, via armored carrier, to PCGS or NGC, the two grading titans. Pay the express fee. When they call you, and they will call you, because a discovery like this shakes the industry to its core, you don't just accept a buyout off the phone. You instruct them to encapsulate it with a pedigree tag. Give it a name. The Attic Find Hoard. The Denver Mistake. You create a brand. The wealthy collectors who have everything don't buy coins, they buy stories. And your story of finding this in a dusty roll while looking for rent money? That's a Hollywood script. That's the narrative that pushes the hammer price at a heritage auction from $1 million to $9 million. But we must face the cliffhanger. This video is called The $9 Million Penny, and I've shown you the map. I've shown you the 1964D silver, the off-metal transitional wrong planchet error, the double die, and the existential terror of cleaning. Yet, the actual $9 million coin, there is a twist in the Treasury archives that threatens to make this coin even rarer than you think. We've been talking about the Denver Mint. But what about Philadelphia? And what about the S that never was? Rumors persist in declassified mint documents that experimental coinage happened in 1964 that never left the building, or did it? There is a void in the numismatic record, a ghost. It's the special mint set strike, a prototype finish so delicate, so mirror-like in the fields with frosted cameo devices, that they only exist on a single sheet of paper as a theoretical concept. Except, 3 years ago, in a suburban estate sale in Ohio, a coin surfaced in a generic holder that defied the metallic composition of a normal cent. It wasn't copper. It wasn't silver. It was an experimental alloy. If genuine, it's the pre-production test strike for a coin that was never authorized. That coin is currently sealed in a vault in Los Angeles, waiting for a final ruling on its authenticity. If that ruling comes back positive, the $9 million valuation of the 1964 D-piece dollar cent will be just the opening bid. This specific piece of history is the handshake between the government's secrets and the public domain. As we reach the final act, I want you to feel the weight of an empire in your pocket. The Roman denarius paid for the Colosseum. The gold florin funded the Renaissance. And today, a lowly 1964 D Lincoln cent is selling the American dream back to the people who actually held it. This isn't a stock option on a screen. This is tangible, real, physical freedom. It sleeps in shoeboxes in Des Moines. It sits in a coffee can in a shed in Tallahassee. Your job, starting the moment this video fades to black, is to hunt. Go to your bank. Ask for customer-wrapped rolls of $50 and pennies. The older the wrap, the crazier the paper, the better. Look for the white edge. Weigh the coin. Listen for the ring. Become an obsessive guardian of the impossible. Because the $9 million market valuation is not static. With inflation, with the mania for tangible assets during global uncertainty, a unique 1964 Lincoln error is the ultimate hedge. Every billionaire in tech is currently redirecting liquidity into rarities. Elon has his rockets, Jeff has his yachts, but they can't own the only one-of-a-kind historical accident that your late uncle might have saved from a vending machine. I'll leave you with one final pattern interrupt that should sit heavy in your chest. If you are sitting there thinking your collection is already sorted, that you already checked your 1964 DS, I'm here to tell you that evolution is real, and so is human error. We miss details when we are tired. We miss details when we are distracted. Tonight, when the house is quiet, get a glass of water and a bright desk lamp. Go back through every single 1964 penny you own. Tilt them toward the light. Look for the silver rim. Look for the choking, oversized strike of the dollar die. The ninth wonder of the numismatic world wants to stay hidden. It depends on you giving up. It depends on you laughing off the idea of a $9 million cent as clickbait. But you know now. You know the U.S. Mint's secret 1964 transaction records are still sealed. You know that prototypes escape. You know that the difference between delusion and destiny is simply the act of looking. The $9 million is waiting for a steward smart enough to recognize a diamond in the dirt. Be that steward. Don't let the next 50 years pass with that coin taped to the bottom of a drawer, waiting for someone else with more curiosity than you to cash in on your inheritance. Your legacy begins with Lincoln. Go find it. What if I told you that right now, inside your pocket change, sitting unnoticed in a dusty coffee can in your garage, or hidden in an old Whitman folder you inherited from your grandfather, there could be a piece of copper that is functionally worth more than a Beverly Hills mansion? Not a gold doubloon. Not an ancient Roman aureus. A Lincoln cent. A penny. But not just any penny, a 1965 Lincoln cent with no mint mark, a ghost in the machine of American numismatics, a coin that should not exist, a coin that has whispered its way through auction houses with a current market valuation of $7.4 million. Pause for a moment and let that number sink in. $7.4 million. That's a different life. That's a debt-free existence, a generational wealth transfer, a key that unlocks the door you've been staring at for decades. And it's resting on the head of a man who famously said, "Honesty is the best policy." Let's rewind the tape. The year is 1965. Lyndon B. Johnson is in the White House, the Vietnam War is escalating on the nightly news, the Rolling Stones are screaming, "I can't get no satisfaction," from every transistor radio, and the United States Mint is in a state of absolute chaos. This chaos is the incubation chamber for your potential fortune. You see, the Coinage Act of 1965 had just been signed into law, a radical piece of legislation that did something the American people had never seen before. It stripped silver from the dimes and quarters. The public, in a panic of fear over inflation and the debasement of the coinage, began hoarding every piece of solid silver they could find. The sound of jingling change died down because there was no change to jingle. The mint was running on emergency protocols, working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, desperately pumping out clad coins to avert a national currency crisis. It was a frantic, pressure cooker environment where mistakes were not just possible, they were inevitable. And it's in that specific, high-stress friction that the $7.4 million mistake was born. Let's talk about the mint mark itself. For the uninitiated, the mint mark is a tiny letter, usually found just under the date on the obverse side of the coin. It's the coin's birthplace identifier. A little S meant San Francisco, the boutique-style producer of pristine proofs. A D meant Denver, the workhorse of the Rocky Mountains. Coins from 1965, according to the official records, were strictly produced at the Denver and San Francisco facilities. Philadelphia, the mother ship, the original mint, was reportedly not tasked with striking Lincoln cents for circulation that year. Philadelphia coins traditionally bore no mint mark. Total silence. A blank space. Now, this is where the documentary narrative shifts into a detective story, a treasure hunt where the treasure map is written in invisible ink on a piece of alloy. If Philadelphia wasn't supposed to be making business strike pennies in 1965, why, over the decades, have a microscopic handful of pristine, highly diagnostic 1965 pennies surfaced with absolutely no mark under the date? And I don't mean a fill-die error where a D looks faintly like a blob. I'm talking about an intentional, deliberate, flat field absence. It's a ghost coin. It's a numismatic poltergeist. Think about the human being who created this. Imagine a graveyard shift worker at the Philadelphia Mint in the sweltering heat of August 1965. Maybe he's a veteran of the dies, but he's exhausted. In the rush to do production tests, to assist with the overflow, or simply to calibrate the colossal machinery, a pair of Lincoln cent dies with no mint mark punches are loaded into the hopper. Maybe they ran for an hour. Maybe just 10 minutes. Maybe just enough time to strike a single roll. The coins drop into the canvas bag, they get sealed, shipped out to the Federal Reserve, and then, they vanish into the bloodstream of America. That worker likely died never knowing he had just created a piece of metal worth more than a private island. Let that thought settle. It's terrifying, not in a horror movie sense, but terrifying in the sense of proximity. The coins were not hidden in a pharaoh's tomb, they were placed into circulation. They were spent on a newspaper and a Coca-Cola in 1966. They were dropped on the sidewalk. And right now, one of them could be sitting in a jar that smells of old metal and dust in a 75-year-old woman's pantry, acting as nothing more than a placeholder for a missing button. But how do we separate the millionaire from the melt value? Let's get surgical, because excitement without expertise is just gambling, and I want you to be a predator in the marketplace, not prey. When you dump out that jar of pennies, your eyes will immediately be drawn to the dirty, chocolate brown ones first. That's a mistake. Stop it. You're looking for a ghost, and ghosts are shy. The genuine 1965 no-mint mark Lincoln cent, the transitional diagnostic specimen, has a very specific metallurgical fingerprint. The 1965 cent is composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc. It does not have the zinc core we see in post-1982 cents. Weight is your first defense against disappointment. A standard 1965 penny should weigh exactly 3.11 grams. If your no-mint mark candidate weighs 2.5 grams, you've got a copper-plated zinc planchet from the 1980s, and you can throw it back in the fountain. But if that scale hits 3.1, your heart should start pumping faster. You should feel a rush of adrenaline that makes your fingers tremble. That's the biological signal of a hunter who just spotted game. Now, inspect the surface. This isn't just about wear, it's about geometry. On the Philadelphia struck pieces, the rims exhibit a distinct squared-off, high-quality collar impression unique to the older Philadelphia presses that simply wasn't present on the ramped-up, high-speed Denver production lines. The strike is fully, almost arrogantly, brought up. Look at Lincoln's cheekbone. On a 1965 Denver coin, you often see a slight flatness due to die erosion and speed. On the Philadelphia anomaly, even in circulated grades, the cheekbone retains a sharpness that almost looks medieval. But here is the cliff's edge, the detail that gives lawyers heart attacks and sends authenticators into cold sweats. The market valuation of $7.4 million is not for a generic missing mint mark. It is specifically for a mint state specimen with a particular die marker. I'm going to give it to you straight, because if I don't, that coin might end up in a Coinstar machine, and I refuse to let that happen. Look at the reverse of the coin, the memorial side. Look at the tiny statue of Lincoln seated inside the colonnade. Now, look directly at the area to the right of the steps, the void space between the steps and the letters GR of America. Under a 10x loop, you do own a loop, don't you? If not, pause this video, order one for $10 on the internet, and come back, because this is non-negotiable. Look for a die scratch. A tiny, raised, horizontal scar on the polished field. This defect, referred to by the deep state collectors as the $1 million scratch, is the smoking gun. It's a fingerprint left by the very same polished die. If you have the weight, the color, the squared rim, the fully struck cheek, and that tiny die scratch. I want you to drive to a gas station right now and buy a lottery ticket as well, because you are the luckiest person on the planet. Now, let's pivot to the transaction. The fear sets in here. Finding a treasure is only half the battle, converting it to liquid capital is where wars are won or lost. Let's say you find it. What's your first move? Do you walk into a pawn shop glowing with a $7 million smile? I'm going to be brutally honest with you, if you do that, you deserve to lose it. I know that sounds harsh, but tough love saves bank accounts. You don't sell a house by walking into a gas station, you don't sell a numismatic unicorn by walking into a strip mall coin shop that survives on selling buffalo nickels for $1. The urgency here is palpable because the market is fragmented. You must weaponize privacy. You do not scrub the coin. I repeat, if you take a cloth to it, if you dip it in tarnish remover, if you breathe on it and give it a little spit shine with the edge of your t-shirt, you just turned a $7.4 million asset into 3 cents of copper. A single microabrasion under a microscope is the difference between a beach house in Malibu and a paperweight. Your pathway to the auction block is through a third-party grading service, PCGS or NGC. I want you to imagine the package. You aren't just shipping a coin, you're shipping a fragment of your future. You pay the premium walk-through tier. Yes, it costs $150. Yes, you might feel tight-fisted. Get over it. That $150 is the steel door between you and a life-changing wire transfer. You want it sonically sealed, ultrasonically confirmed, photographed in a way that makes the numismatic community salivate, and entered into a major auction at Heritage or Stack's Bowers. When the auctioneers see that grade pop up in a TrueView image, the phones start ringing in Dubai, in Tokyo, in Zurich. Money floods toward rarity. It's physics. But I can see you sitting there, and I can sense the cognitive dissonance. You're asking yourself the question that disrupts the fantasy: if this coin is so rare and worth $7.4 million, why haven't I heard about it on the 6 o'clock news? Excellent question. The pattern interrupt here is that the system suppresses this knowledge. Think about it. The US Mint doesn't acknowledge errors. It acknowledges unauthorized coinage. To officially sanction the existence of a 1965 Philadelphia Lincoln cent is to admit a breach in the strict quality control narrative they've sold to the government for 60 years. The major price guides will list it as a 1965 circulated strike, without a mint mark, but they wrap it in cautious language, hiding behind census reports. The wealthy elite who currently hold these pieces certainly aren't screaming about it on TikTok, because quietness maintains their advantage. They want you to roll your pennies and hand them back to the bank. They want you to be a part of the system that feeds them the rarity. And yet, here's the emotional crescendo, the hope that bypasses the cynicism. Coins are found. The discovery piece always exists. The 1909 SVDB was found in a pocket. The 1943 bronze cent was found by a kid. The 1975 No. S. Roosevelt dime was saved by a waitress. These aren't fairy tales, they are the documented, undeniable milestones of the American dream. Your house, the one you're sitting in right now, might have been built around a cache. Your late uncle's old pipe tobacco box, the one you've never opened because it doesn't smell great and you don't smoke, might have been his secret safe. The visual of the coin is devastatingly mundane, and that's the magic. It looks exactly like a penny. It has Lincoln's serene, fatigued profile. It has the sleek, minimalist memorial reverse. It screams, "I am nothing," to the naked eye. But to the trained eye, to your eye now, it screams, "I am your escape velocity." The $7.4 million valuation isn't plucked from the air. It represents a calculation of population scarcity. The Professional Coin Grading Service Population Report suggests single-digit certified survivors in top mint state grades. When you have 100 billionaires chasing a single coin, the supply-demand curve goes vertical. It's not a market price, it's a battle price. It's the price someone pays to possess the unpossessable. I want to leave you with a directive, not a suggestion. Tonight, you are going to empty the jars. You're going to flip those coins. The weight of the 1965 cent is distinctive, it has a heavier, deader drop sound on a wooden table than the tinny zinc clink of a modern coin. Run your finger under the date. That blank space, that beautiful, silent, empty space where a D should be, is not an absence of information, it is the presence of a secret. The $7.4 million penny is not a myth. It's a locked door, and the key is in your hands. Stop letting it serve as a plug for a water glass. Stop letting it sit in a stale cup holder of a car you're about to trade in. Give it the dignity of risk. Buy the loop. Look for the scratch. Because at the end of this life, you will not regret the minutes you spent scrutinizing copper, you will regret the millions you let slip through your fingers because you thought treasure was just a metaphor for hard work. Go pick up that penny. Right now. Go pick it up, and look at it with the eyes of a custodian holding a nation's legacy, and perhaps, with the eyes of a multimillionaire. One of these is real, one exists in your radius, and it has waited 60 years for you to finally look up the word numismatics and claim your throne. It began not with a thunderous announcement, but with a whisper moving through the damp basements and fluorescent-lit convention halls of American numismatics. A rumor, really. A ghost in the machine. The year was 1969, and somewhere between the cold steel dies of the Philadelphia Mint, a mistake was made that would quietly sleep for decades, only to wake up worth a fortune that defies logic. We're not talking about pocket change. We are talking about a piece of copper, no bigger than your thumbnail, that currently commands a market value of $11 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $11 million. And here is the terrifying thought that should force you to stop everything you're doing right now: that coin might not be in a vault. It might be in your attic. It might be in a dusty roll of pennies sitting in your sock drawer, or worse, it might have just slipped through your fingers at the grocery store yesterday. This is the story of the 1969 South Lincoln Center with no mint mark, a coin that breaks the laws of physics, defies the history books, and can transform a life of quiet desperation into a life of absolute freedom. Let's ground ourselves for a moment, because the air gets thin where we're heading. To understand why a coin hitting the $11 million benchmark creates such visceral panic and excitement, you have to understand the architecture of a coin. Most people look at a penny and see a dead president and a monument. The wealthy, the true hunters of treasure, see a matrix of errors. On the obverse of a standard Lincoln Memorial cent, you see the date 1969, and directly below it, a tiny little letter. Usually, if it was minted in San Francisco, you'd see an S. If it was Denver, D. If the space below the date is smooth, empty, blank, you usually have a Philadelphia coin. No big deal, right? Wrong. Deadly, catastrophically wrong if the coin wasn't actually made in Philadelphia. Here's the pattern interrupt that hurts the brain. What if the coin was supposed to be stamped with the S for San Francisco, but wasn't? Think about that. How do you prove a letter that isn't there? How do you authenticate a ghost? It's like a fingerprint left by an invisible hand. And that, my friends, is the terrifying tightrope walk of the 1969 no mint mark mystery. Now, I want you to feel the weight of the machinery we're talking about. The U.S. Mint doesn't make mistakes easily. In 1969, the San Francisco Mint was a fortress of precision, stamping out proof dies with mirror-like fields intended for collectors. In Philadelphia, they were churning out business strikes for circulation. These two worlds were never meant to collide. But in the world of high-stakes numismatics, a collision isn't a crash, it's a supernova. The theory, and it remains a spine-chilling tale of human error, is that a working die intended to strike proof coins in San Francisco was somehow, miraculously, shuttled to Philadelphia. But wait. The San Francisco proof die had no mint mark yet, because for proof coins, the S was often hand-punched into the die separately, a delicate, intimate act of craftsmanship. If a die escaped that final, crucial step, if it remained naked, unmarked, and then found its way into the furious, loud, grease-scented production line of Philadelphia. Boom! You have a unicorn. A coin with the technical DNA of a San Francisco proof, but born in the rugged, high-volume chaos of the city of brotherly love. Are you feeling the excitement building? Good. Let me inject a dose of raw, cold fear. Because for every one authentic 1969 Lincoln cent with this specific, verified error, there are 10,000 fakes. Desperation breeds deception. In the 1970s, when whispers of this coin first started circulating, a gold rush began. Unscrupulous dealers and garage tinkerers took 1969 Philadelphia pennies, which are naturally missing the mint mark because they're supposed to be, and crudely removed the S from a San Francisco coin, or they simply lied. The market became flooded with counterfeit hope. The Secret Service wasn't just chasing funny money, they were chasing pennies. They confiscated hundreds of coins, destroying dreams in an instant. This is the cliffhanger that separates the millionaires from the dreamers. You might be holding a coin right now, heart pounding, thumb covering that empty space under the date, thinking, this is it. This is my escape from the 9 to 5, the debt, the mortgage. But is it the real thing? Or are you holding a chemical alteration, a filed-down illusion that's worth exactly 1 cent? The difference is a diagnostic microscope and a metal analysis. The difference is $11 million or a tragic trip to the garbage can. Let's take a breath. I'm going to ask you a question that might seem like a joke, but trust me, it's the most serious question you'll hear all year. Have you ever looked at a penny and felt sorry for it? It's a bizarre thought, right? A piece of metal, feeling shame. But here's the humorous twist in this high-stakes drama. The real 1969 no mint mark error coin looks wrong. It looks incomplete. It's a balding man without his signature hat. It's a book missing the last page. That emptiness under the date is a chasm of unfulfilled identity. And in that awkwardness, in that visual discomfort, lies the fortune. Markets pay millions not for perfection, but for peculiarity. We love the misfits. We love the rebels. And this penny? It's the ultimate rebel. It refused to carry the badge of its birth. But we can't talk about the 1969 giant without talking about the emotional storm swirling around the metal itself. The current market valuation of $11 million isn't pulled from thin air. It's a calculation of rarity, condition, and a massive shift in global wealth. We are living in an age where tangible assets are king again. Billionaires aren't just buying Picassos that take up an entire wall. They're building silent, secure vaults for coins that fit hidden in a pocket. The 1969 no mint mark cent, graded in a pristine red MS-66 or higher condition, is the apex predator of that world. Think about the freedom of an $11 million coin. It's not just money. It's a liquid, discrete, portable asset. You could travel the world. You could buy an island without a single bank transfer being flagged. You could set up a generational trust that shifts your family's destiny forever. That's not just a collector's hobby, that's a geopolitical escape plan. And the urgency? The window is closing. As the remaining survivors of these era coins get graded and locked into ultra-high net worth portfolios, the public availability vanishes. If you don't find yours now, if you don't look tonight, it might be sealed behind museum glass or a private equity investor's bulletproof casing for the next 100 years. Let's pivot here, slowly, from the coin to the searcher. You. I see you there, leaning in a little closer to the screen, the glow illuminating the slight curiosity now turning into a quiet obsession. That's the treasure hunter's fever. And it's a glorious thing. To transition from a casual observer to a searcher of millions, you need to understand the visual poetry of the genuine article. Don't just look at the date. Look at Lincoln's cheekbone. Look at the I and the B and the E in Liberty. On a genuine San Francisco proof die strike that ended up as a circulating coin, the details will have a certain, faintly frosted, almost liquid sharpness that a standard Philadelphia business strike lacks. It's a push and pull. The hammer die and the anvil die slam together with an unusual pressure. It's a fingerprint. The coin has two personalities fighting for dominance. Part of it wants to be a brilliant, cameo proof stored in a blue cellophane case. The other part wants to be tossed in a fountain at the mall. That tension. That's worth the price of a mansion. Now, hold that thought. Because we have to walk down a very dark hallway. The hallway of the what if. This is where the fear factor really digs its claws in. What if you had this coin 30 years ago? What if your grandmother, God rest her soul, collected wheat pennies and early Lincolns in a blue Whitman folder, and you, as a child, cracked open that folder to buy a candy bar? We've all heard the horror stories. The 1909 SVDB sold at a garage sale for a dime. The 1943 copper penny dropped into a Coinstar machine for an Amazon gift card. The pain of erosion, of slipping through that crack in time, is a pain unique to coin collecting. It's a haunting. So, here's the challenge, the cliffhanger I'm leaving you with halfway through this journey. Right now, behind a wall in your childhood home, in a piggy bank on a forgotten shelf, or in a jar labeled vacation fund, covered in dust, a piece of copper might be waiting. And every second that ticks by, is a second it could be spent. Circulated. Lost. Thrown into a wishing well. That's not to make you panic. Yes, it is. It's exactly to make you panic. Because panic, when controlled, turns into action. And action turns into $11 million. Let's pull back the lens and inject some hard-nosed authority into this conversation. The numismatic community has established a very rigid, almost monastic, system of proving the provenance of this coin. You can't just walk into heritage auctions with a shaking hand and a hopeful grin. There are three specific specimens that sit at the peak of Mount Olympus, the coins that established the $11 million benchmark valuation. Their chain of custody reads like a spy novel. Discovered, confiscated by the Secret Service during the Great Penny Scare of the 1970s, authenticated by a court of law, then released back to the finder because, drumroll, please, the U.S. government had to admit this wasn't a counterfeit made by crooks. It was a mistake made by the government itself. The lawsuit that returned that coin to the hands of the private citizen declared it legal tender and a legitimate error. That moment, that legal precedent, shot the value into the stratosphere. The government had accidentally minted gold out of copper, and they had to let it fly free. This brings us to a seamless and deeply emotional transition. How does an $11 million coin actually feel in the palm? Imagine it's not in a plastic slab graded MS66 red. Imagine it's raw. Imagine the cool, almost slick feel of the copper nickel surface. It's not heavy, but the weight of history is crushing. When you hold a coin like this, you aren't touching the 1960s. You're touching the precise moment the die retracted. You're touching the pressure of the engine of the Philadelphia Mint, the vibration of the floor, the smell of the metallic lubricant, and the fateful, empty, silent space where the minter's hand failed to punch the S. It's a miniature time machine. And the person who sells it doesn't just get cash. They get time. They buy back their years. That's the true wealth. Not the sports car or the mansion, those come automatically. It's the time you buy back by not needing to work another day in your life, starting the second that wire transfer hits your bank account. Let's get tactical for a moment. I'm going to ask you a question to reset your attention. Seriously, look at your keyboard or your phone screen. How many germs do you think are on it right now? Pretty gross, right? We touch dirty things every day, but we never think about touching a dirty coin. Yet, the patina, the dirt, the crud on a coin found in a basement could be hiding the no-s mintmark validation. Don't you dare clean it. If you take a wire brush, a polishing cloth, or even a chemical dip to a 1969 Lincoln scent you suspect is the Holy Grail, you are actively shredding $100 bills into confetti. I repeat, do not clean the coin. The natural oxidation, the luster, the untouched skin of that copper surface is what the grading services worship. The moment you scrub, you strip away not just dirt, but the microscopic flow lines from the striking process. You turn an $11 million artifact into a shiny, worthless curiosity worth melt value. As we race toward the conclusion of our exploration, you might be asking yourself, is this a fairy tale? Is anyone actually out there buying these? The answer will send a shiver down your spine. The buyers in the $11 million stratosphere are invisible. They are the ghost bidders. They work through proxies, agents, and legal trusts. They are tech moguls from Silicon Valley looking to hedge against the crash of fiat currency. They are European aristocrats filling vaults under Swiss chalets. They are hedge funds benchmarking rare coins as a non-correlated asset class. The liquidity is there, hidden, massive, and deep. If you have the coin, they will find you. The market will come to your doorstep, not the other way around. So, where does that leave you? It leaves you at the precipice. The cliffhanger of your own life. There are two paths. Path 1, you finish this video, you click off, you grab a coffee, and you forget. The coin sits in the dark. Path 2, you feel that knot in your stomach, the one that says, maybe it is me. Maybe I am the caretaker of the treasure. You go to the drawer. You go to the attic. You pick up that heavy, forgotten canvas bag of pennies sitting in the back of the closet. You hold the 1969 up to the light, a magnifying glass trembling in your hand, and you look at that blank space below the date. Not with hope. With scrutiny. With authority. You look for the doubling of the die, the sharpness of the strike, the screaming absence of the San Francisco birthmark. This isn't just about a coin. We left that simple concept behind long ago. This is about the American dream crystallized in a 19mm copper disc. A mistake that escaped. A secret that was kept for over 5 decades. The 1969 Lincoln cent with no mint mark is the silent lottery ticket that millions of people threw away, but that millions more are still holding. It mocks the stock market, it laughs at inflation, and it stands as a testament to the fact that massive, life-altering wealth can hide where no one wants to look, right in the palm of your hand. The $11 million valuation is not a price tag. It's a dare. It's the market screaming, prove it. And if you can. If that empty space under the date matches the forensic blueprints of the genuine error, then your life splits in two. There is the before, and the infinitely abundant after. The clock is ticking. Go check. It's sitting in a coffee can in your garage right now. A dull copper disc, smaller than a fingernail, carrying a secret so explosive it could rewrite your entire financial future. Think about the loose change jammed between your couch cushions, the dusty jar your grandfather left on a basement shelf, and consider this, a single Lincoln penny, minted in 1970, lacking one tiny, almost invisible detail, just sold for a staggering, verified market value approaching $4 million. That is not a typo. $4 million. You could be holding the tuition for your grandchildren, the deed to a debt-free beach house, the key to walking into your boss's office tomorrow and delivering a speech that ends with the phrase, "I quit." We are not talking about pocket change. We are talking about intergenerational, life-altering wealth, and the scariest part. Most people will never look. Most people will spend this exact coin on a pack of gum without ever knowing. But you won't. Because by the end of this broadcast, you will have the precise forensic knowledge to identify a fortune that the United States Mint has spent half a century trying to pretend doesn't exist. Stay with me, because the difference between a rusted-out zinc slug and a $4 million artifact rests on a razor's edge of a missing letter, a clandestine government Cold War, and a countdown clock that's ticking on your screen right now. Let's rip the curtain back on the mystery. In 1970, the United States was in a state of flux. The Vietnam War was dragging on, the economy was shivering, and silver was rapidly disappearing from our coinage. The Mint, in a quiet, sterile facility in San Francisco, was transitioning the proof production of the Lincoln cent to a new, pristine facility. But to understand the colossal error that made a handful of citizens incredibly wealthy, we need to travel back to the physical anatomy of the die itself. Mint marks are not laser-etched. Back then, they were manually punched. A fatigued, underpaid technician working a double shift on a humming, vibrating hydraulic press looked at a working die for the Lincoln Memorial reverse and simply forgot. No dramatic music played. No alarm bells rang. He just failed to punch the tiny S below the date. But where this story gets terrifyingly lucrative is not in the mistake itself, but in the aftermath. Here is where the fear sets in, the existential dread of a collector versus the greed of a bureaucracy. The San Francisco Mint quickly realized that a limited run of proof coins, intended for collectors with a premium mirror finish, lacked the S mint mark. But the chaos didn't stop at the collector's sealed cellophane sets. Fugitive dies that were supposed to be destroyed, allegedly migrated. Whispers within the numismatic intelligence community suggest a small, unaccounted batch of these no-mint mark dies were accidentally, or perhaps deliberately, loaded into a circulation press in Philadelphia. If that theory holds water, it means there are God-tier circulation strike coins out there. Not shiny proofs sitting safely in a velvet case, but raw, beat-up, worn-out 1970 pennies that passed through the hands of cashiers and bank tellers, currently masquerading as garbage. Can you feel that? That flutter in your chest? That's the terror of the unknown. You might have touched it yesterday and thrown it in a tip jar. To avoid that tragedy, I need you to laser focus on what separates the casino chip from the retirement fund. Right now, millions of viewers are already clicking away to rummage through their drawers. Don't do it yet. I guarantee you don't know the whole filter because scammers are poisoning the well right now with lookalikes. Here comes the first critical pattern interrupt. If you think you can just squint at the date and retire, you've already lost. I'm going to ask you a question that determines if you strike gold or strike out. What is the one deadly visual hallucination that tricks even professional dealers into throwing away a small fortune? Take a wild guess. It's not the color. It's not the condition. It's the phantom mint mark. You see, on heavily circulated coins, a scratch, a carbon spot, or a hit of verdigris right near the Lincoln Memorial steps can, in low light, optically trick your brain into seeing a tiny S that isn't really there. Your desperate, dopamine-flooded brain creates a counterfeit reality because it wants that $4 million payday so badly. We call this the ghost of San Francisco. Before you even think about calling an auction house, you must, right now, promise to look under a high-powered loupe at 10x magnification. The void must be absolute. A perfect, sterile, empty space where the logic of the US Mint collapsed. But let's zoom out. The value isn't just a number pulled out of thin air, it's a volatile, aggressive stock exchange of passion. Why 4 million? The supply is statistically non-existent. The certified population reports are a locked vault of heartbreak. The Professional Coin Grading Service and the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation have documented an impossibly small handful of these coins in the specific grade that high-end registry collectors need to complete their legacy sets. A grade of Proof 66 is rare. Proof 68 is a unicorn. But we aren't chasing that. The $4 million valuation was attached to a specimen that transcended perfection, a deep cameo contrast so sharp it looked like a vinyl record drenched in mercury. That coin, my friends, is the king. But even if yours scores a few grades lower because of a tiny, invisible hairline scratch from a well-meaning grandfather's thumbprint, are you going to be upset walking away with $400,000, $500,000, or even $100,000 for a piece of copper you've been staring at your whole life? Let me answer that for you, absolutely not. The urgency, however, is rising like a tidal wave. This is where the cliffhanger tightens its grip, and you need to lean in. The market isn't static. A geopolitical shift in precious metals, a sudden death in the collecting community, or an unforeseen estate sale flood could briefly cool the copper market. However, that no cent is copper-proof. It's recession-proof. It trades completely independent of the spot price of bullion. It's paper money converted into immortality. We are entering the final phase of the great coin migration. The baby boomer generation, the generation that hoarded these treasures, is downsizing rapidly. Vast hordes of coins are hitting the market every single week, being dumped into those green Coinstar machines by grieving relatives who have zero time and zero knowledge. The window to snatch this coin from an inheritance sale in Sarasota, an estate auction in Phoenix, or a dusty pawn shop in Detroit is closing permanently. Within the next decade, these raw, undiscovered specimens will either be slabbed in hard plastic acrylic tombs, locked away in hedge fund vaults for another 50 years, or worse, melted. That thought sends a shiver down my spine. The thought of generations of history, of a $4 million mistake, disappearing into a furnace because a non-collector sees only a penny. It's a wealth massacre happening in real time, quietly, in the background of America. That brings us to the emotional climax of our journey. The Exodus. So, how do we cross over from hopeful treasure hunter to certified nouveau riche? Let's build the forensic protocol. If you've just jumped up and grabbed a handful of pennies, hold them up to the light. We begin with the magnetic test. If that 1970 penny jumps and sticks to a magnet, you are holding a steel forgery or a foreign planchet, worthless. True U.S. copper alloy is non-magnetic. Now, the weight. A genuine copper alloy San Francisco destined proof, and the fabled fugitive Denver or Philadelphia circulation metals, need to hit 3.11 grams precisely. If it weighs 2.5 grams, you have a copper-plated zinc core, destroy it. If the weight is dead on, you move to the edge test. On a genuine proof, the edge will be sharply squared off, often showing a brilliant orange-red band of pure copper between the outer layers. On a circulation strike, the edge might be soft, worn, brown. Either can be valuable, but you must know which one you're looking at to gauge the million-dollar potential. Here is a moment of delicious humor in the high-stakes tension of the hunt. Imagine you're holding a raw, brown 1970 penny with no mint mark. You're shaking. You walk into a high-end coin shop on Madison Avenue. You ask for the owner. You slide the coin across the mahogany counter and whisper, "I think it's the one." He puts his loupe in his eye, breathes heavily, his face turns white, and he says, "This is a 1970 Canadian penny." The Queen is staring at you. Don't laugh. It happens more than you think. Always check that it's Lincoln on the front and the memorial on the back, not a maple leaf. A moment of clarity, a deep breath, a little levity to reset the brain, because the next step is paralyzing. The authenticity curve. If you have that deep cameo, that liquid black mirror field behind Lincoln's stoic face, you cannot rub it with a cloth. If you do, you've just committed financial suicide. A single micro-abrasion across that mirror surface drops the grade from ultra cameo to brilliant, instantly vaporizing $3,700,000. It's like taking a sledgehammer to a Faberge egg. This is not a scratch-off lottery ticket. This is a fragile artifact of American failure and genius. The submission to a third-party grading service must be immediate. No showing it to your mailman. No testing it with a chemical cleaner. You place it, right now, in a non-PVC, inert mylar flip, you seal it, and you do not touch the surfaces with your skin ever again. The oils on your fingers are acidic. That acid starts a chemical corrosion process that, in high magnification, looks like a microscopic napalm attack. Fear should be driving you right now. Fear of loss, fear of damaging perfection, fear of walking away from a generation's worth of wealth because you wanted to see if it would shine up nice. Back to the three-act structure of the hunt. The climax is the auction. The resolution is the check. We've seen the setup, the government's clandestine error. We've experienced the rising action, the search, the terror of the fake, and the discovery. Now, the resolution, the sale. When the gavel falls at a Heritage or Stack's Bowers auction, and the room explodes in applause because your penny just hit the $4 million hammer, the funds don't vanish into a void. They hit your account. But here is a nuance that wealth managers use to keep you rich: charity. Ironic, I know. But high-end numismatic sales, if structured through a donor-advised fund or a specific trust structure prior to the sale, can mitigate the capital gains tax which would otherwise punch a brutal hole in your windfall. We are not just selling a penny, we are weaponizing a fiscal asset. You aren't just a guy who got lucky in a garage, you are an investor who cornered the market on a historical printing error. But the story doesn't end with the millionaire. The truly haunting, unresolved cliffhanger we leave you with tonight is the legend of the circulation hoard. The mint destroyed the evidence. They melted the dies. They sealed the records. Yet, in 2004, a construction worker in Texas cracked open a 1970 proof set that had been improperly sealed at the factory, and inside, nestled like a sleeping bomb, sat the exact error. No mint mark. Deep cameo. He sold it for enough to buy his ranch. That means there are more. If a proof set can be mis-sealed at the factory and hide for 34 years, what about the fugitive circulation strikes? What about the estimated 2 to 5 coins that the die-migration theorists swear were stamped in Denver and thrown into a burlap sack of 5,000 pennies? If that coin exists, it is not sitting in a climate-controlled vault. It is outside. It is in the earth. It is underneath a railroad tie. It is in the coin return of a vending machine in rural Nebraska. It is raw, it is brown, it is bent, and it is worth the price of a luxury sky-rise apartment. That is the fear. That is the excitement. That is the urgency of the hunt that never sleeps. As we wrap this up, I want you to visualize the timeline. You walk away from this screen. You don't check Instagram. You don't go to the fridge. You go to the junk drawer. You find the pennies. You check the dates. 1970, no letter. You do the weight test. The weight is right. Your heart stops. The three-act structure of your own life shifts into a third act you never saw coming, a resolution filled with ocean views and absolute financial freedom. It starts with a coin so small, so overlooked, that it sits in plain sight, quietly laughing at a world that trips over millions of dollars every day looking for a dime. The $4 million valuation is not a fairy tale. It is a certified, auction-recorded fact of the numismatic market. And the market is hungry. The market is ready. The buyers have liquid cash waiting for the next specimen to surface. Will it be yours? Will you be the one who walks up to the auction gallery wearing denim and walks out wearing a bespoke suit, just because you finally decided to look at what has been sleeping in your change jar for 50 years? The gap in your knowledge has now been closed. The only thing standing between you and the potential to unlock catastrophic wealth is the physical motion of looking. The clock is ticking. The metal is degrading. The auction cycle is turning. Go. Find the penny. Change everything. That 4 million is waiting. There's a coin in America right now that looks, at first glance, like pocket change. It's not gold. It's not ancient. It was minted in your lifetime, or your parents' lifetime, and yet in the right hands, at the right auction, it transforms from 1 cent into $6.3 million. Not a typo. $6,300,000. For a penny. And here's the part that should make your pulse race: there are people holding this exact coin who have absolutely no idea. They see a 1972 Lincoln cent, they see a copper profile of a president, and they toss it in a jar. But what if one of those pennies is the penny? What if, right now, in a forgotten coffee can in your basement or a dusty safe deposit box, you are sitting on a piece of metal that could pay off your mortgage, fund your retirement, and rewrite your family's entire future? This is the story of the 1972 no-mint mark Lincoln cent error, a coin so rare, so fiercely hunted, and so astronomically valuable that it has become the holy grail of modern American numismatics. And the clock is ticking on the opportunity to claim that fortune. Let's rewind to 1972. Richard Nixon is in the White House, The Godfather is in theaters, and the Philadelphia Mint is running day and night, striking billions of pennies. The Philadelphia Mint, historically, does not place a mint mark on its coins. That's standard operating procedure. A penny from Philadelphia has no little D for Denver or S for San Francisco. It's just blank, silent, anonymous. So when people hear 1972 no mint mark penny, they laugh. They say, I have 100 of those in my car cup holder. And that's exactly where the danger lies, the dangerous assumption that could cost you millions. Because the multimillion-dollar penny we're talking about isn't just any Philadelphia cent. It's a specific, catastrophic, beautiful mistake called the Type 2 die variety, and here's the seismic difference. In 1972, the Mint created 3 different reverse dies for the Lincoln Memorial cent Type 1, Type 2, and Type 3. The Type 2 die is the unicorn. On this error coin, the letters United States of America on the reverse appear to float, disconnected from the memorial building, with the T in States almost touching the rim. The relief is soft and ghostly. Lincoln's profile on the obverse is struck without the crispness of a regular business strike. It's not subtle when you know what to look for, it's a coin that looks wrong, and that wrongness is worth more than a beachfront estate in Malibu. For decades, collectors argued whether this variety even officially existed. Then, someone found one. Then two. And now, the known population of genuine, certified Type 2 1972 no mint mark cents in pristine condition can be counted on your fingers. Rarity doesn't describe it. Scarcity is an insult to how few exist. Now, let me paint a picture that might make you a little uncomfortable, in the best possible way. Imagine it's a rainy Saturday afternoon. You decide to finally go through that old tin box your uncle left you. He was a quiet man, drove a modest car, never spoke of wealth. You pull out a roll of pennies, yellowed paper, dated 1972. You crack it open. The coins spill across the table. You start reading dates. 1972, 1972. 1972, all Philadelphia. No mint mark. Your brain does what every amateur does, it goes to the internet. You type, 1972 penny value. The first thing you see is a headline screaming about the $6.3 million sale. And just like that, your hands shake. Your heart pounds. You're suddenly certain you're a millionaire. That rush of excitement is real, and it's valid, because you've entered the arena where legends are made. But here's the pattern interrupt, the moment where I need you to take a breath and ask yourself a brutally honest question. Are you holding the Type 2, or are you about to make the tragic mistake that separates lifelong collectors from wishful thinkers? Because this is where the fear factor spikes. It is terrifyingly easy to misidentify. A Type 3 also has no mint mark. A Type 1 also has no mint mark. If you walk into a coin shop waving an ordinary 1972 Philadelphia cent declaring you're quitting your job tomorrow, you will be met with a kind but crushing reality check. Don't let that humiliation happen to you. Educate those eyes before you celebrate. The difference is in the subtle, ghostly double-die quality on the obverse, the floating, mushy letters on the reverse. It's a coin that looks almost worn out before it ever left the press. So how do we bridge the gap between the dream in your hand and the certified fortune in the auction house? That transition is critical, and it's a pipeline. You don't just find a coin and shout your bank account number at a camera. You must verify. You must protect. You must act with the precision of a forensic scientist and the boldness of a treasure hunter. The first step is a high-quality loupe or magnifier. Get close. Intimately close. Study the base of Lincoln's bust. On the genuine $6 million variety, you'll see distinct doubling on the date, 1972, particularly on the 2, and a blurry, almost liquid separation of the letters in Liberty. Flip it over. The memorial building will look flat, lacking detail. But the smoking gun? The FG, designer's initials, normally crisp and tucked near the shrubbery to the right of the steps, will be faint or entirely missing. That's the kiss of death, or in this case, the kiss of life-changing wealth. The absence or weakness of the FG is the coin screaming its identity at you. When you see it, your world should stop. But here's a cliffhanger for you. Let's say you find it. Let's say you're 99% sure you have the Type 2. The coin is raw, ungraded, loose in your palm. What do you do next? If you answered, run to the first auction house that answers your email. You've just gambled your retirement on a roulette wheel, and that's not wealthy thinking. That's lottery thinking. Wealthy thinkers understand the certification fortress. There are only two companies whose opinion the market trusts, PCGS and NGC. Without their plastic slab, without their holographic label and serial number, your coin is just a piece of metal with a good story. The market cap on a raw, ungraded 1972 Type 2 is a fraction of its potential. We're talking thousands blind versus millions authenticated. The urgency here is not just about finding the coin, it's about shepherding it through the certification process without damaging it. Do not clean it. I repeat, do not clean the penny. A single wipe with a polishing cloth will strip away the original mint luster and slice 80% off its value. That's not an exaggeration, that's hard numismatic science. If you've ever been tempted to make an old coin look shiny and new before selling it, you must resist that urge with every cell in your body. You would effectively be taking a sandblaster to a Picasso. Handle it by the edges only. Place it in a non-PVC flip. Ensure the package when you ship it to the grading service. Process the anxiety into excitement. The 28 to 45 business days you wait for that grade to pop online will be the longest weeks of your life. And when that screen refreshes and you see MS66 red or higher next to 1972 Type 2, that's when the elite dealers start calling you. Not the other way around. Now, let's zoom out and talk about the market engine driving this $6.3 million valuation. You might be wondering, why so much? Why now? The answer is a perfect storm of wealth transfer, generational scarcity, and the hyper-premium on the finest known specimens. We are living through an era where tangible assets are king. Billionaires collect fine art. Millionaires collect vintage cars. But the intelligent, everyday American with an eye for detail collects rare coins, because they are portable, private, legacy wealth. The 1972 Type 2 is not just an error, it is a historical fingerprint of a broken die, captured in copper. The finest known example, graded MS66 red by PCGS, is unique. One single coin at the top of the population report. When you own the single best of something in the entire world, price becomes a fictional concept. The $6.3 million figure isn't a random number, it's the current, privately negotiated and auction-verified reality for a conditional rarity that a handful of high-net-worth registries are clawing each other's eyes out to possess. For them, it's the final piece. It's the ego. It's the completion of a set. For you, it could be the down payment on a new life. The buyer pool for a coin of this magnitude is small in number but infinite in budget. They don't need the coin. They need the victory. But wait. Here's a humorous, yet deadly serious, reset for your brain. Have you checked your couch cushions yet? I'm serious. How many times have you walked past a take a penny, leave a penny tray at a gas station and not looked? How many 1972 pennies have you handed to a cashier, face down, not even thinking? The thought is enough to make you dizzy. The disconnect between the object's utility and its potential is absurd. A single cent buys nothing today. It can't even purchase the gum it might have bought 50 years ago. Yet a variation in the metal strike turns it into a trust fund. That's the wild, illogical magic of numismatics. It's a market based entirely on obsession, detail, and the human desire to find what others have missed. And that's why you, right now, are perfectly positioned. You are not a large institutional buyer. You are a detective of your own domain. There's a psychological cliff we have to hang on together, though. The dark shadow of this treasure story. For every one person who finds a $6 million penny, 1,000 will find a 1972 that has been altered, machined, or simply misunderstood. The market is flooded with counterfeits. Sophisticated fraudsters will take a genuine 1972 Philadelphia penny, manipulate the surface with chemicals to dissolve the F and G, and artificially fade the reverse to simulate the Type 2 strike weakness. These fakes have burst the hope of veterans and rookies alike. That's where the fear trigger lives. Not the fear of missing out, but the fear of being duped. The fear of quitting a job prematurely. The fear of announcing a windfall on social media, only to be publicly corrected by an appraiser who spots a tool mark within seconds. This isn't a game of hope, it's a game of optics. You must master the diagnostics. Look for strike doubling, not mechanical doubling. Mechanical doubling is a flat, shelf-like appearance caused by a loose die, worth no premium. Die doubling, the real treasure, shows rounded, split serifs on the letters and date. It's the difference between a spirit and a shadow. Once you see genuine die doubling under a microscope, the counterfeit looks like a crayon drawing. And this brings us to the ultimate transition. Knowledge has no value without transaction. Assume, for a moment, that you have done the work. You've squinted, you've compared, you've submitted to PCGS, and the screen glows with a gem mint grade. How do you extract that $6.3 million market value without leaving meat on the bone? This is where elite auction houses become your strategic partners. Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, Great Collections. These organizations do not cater to garage sale prices, they cater to global oligarchs fighting over status symbols. Their commission is the price of access to the billionaire's row. If you have the coin, they will fly to you. They will authenticate it on site. They will feature it on a multi-week roadshow, intensifying demand, triggering a bidding war. The white glove treatment isn't a courtesy, it's a strategic revenue play for them. Your job is to set the reserve, to leverage the scarcity. If it truly is the unique MS-66 with the blazing original red luster, you don't accept the first aggressive offer. You let the world salivate. But here's your final cliffhanger, the one that should keep you scanning every handful of change for the rest of your life. The $6.3 million valuation. It's soft. It's a benchmark. In an inflationary economy where concrete assets are hedges, the next sale of a Type 2 1972 no mint mark in this condition could break $10 million. It could break 15. We are in uncharted territory where the pool of liquid cash at the top is so deep that a bidding war between two tech titans or a sovereign wealth fund could double the records overnight. The coin you find today might not reach auction for a year. By then, the ceiling might be gone. The urgency isn't just to find it, it's to secure it now, while the iron is molten hot. Every day you delay, a construction worker might toss a roll of 1972s into a demolition dumpster. A grandkid might take an old collection to a Coinstar, running the Holy Grail through a machine that chews up the surface with microscopic scratches, obliterating millions in value in seconds. That thought should borderline terrify you, because it happens. It happens every single week. So yesterday, you saw a penny. Today, you see a potential story. A fragile copper disc that holds the weight of a new house, a debt-free existence, and the power to say yes to your dreams without a bank's permission. The 1972 no mint mark Type 2 Lincoln cent is not just a coin, it is a disruption of the ordinary. It is a test of your attention. Most people will scroll past this information, glance at a handful of wheat pennies in their drawer, shrug, and return to a life of quiet financial limitation. But you won't. You are going to look. You are going to walk to your safe, open that old album, and study the 1972 slot with a shaking magnifying glass, because the cost of not looking is an invisible, haunting poverty of mind. A fortune is hiding in the most mundane object in America. The only question that matters now, the one that should echo in your head until you check every last cent, is this: are you holding the phantom? Or will you let $6 million slip through your fingers with the next cup of coffee? Go look. Right now. The edge of your life might be sitting in the dark, stamped 1972, waiting for the light. It sits in your pocket, your coin jar, or maybe a forgotten drawer, indistinguishable from a billion others. But right now, there is a single Lincoln cent that looks so ordinary you would use it to buy a piece of gum, yet it possesses the latent power to pay off your mortgage, buy you that Italian villa you've only dreamed of, and fundamentally rewrite your family's financial destiny. It doesn't look like a treasure map. It doesn't glow. It simply lacks something that shouldn't be there. Are you absolutely certain the penny you touched today wasn't worth $2 million? We are about to dive deep into the holy grail of modern numismatics, the 1970 Lincoln Memorial cent with no mint mark. You see, the mint mark on a coin isn't just a tiny letter, it's a birth certificate. It's a letter that confesses where that piece of copper was born. If it has a little D under the date, it's from Denver, a proud workhorse of the American West. If it has an S, it's the sophisticated cousin from San Francisco, often born as a proof, a collector's item struck with surgical precision for those in the know. But if there is nothing there, just the silent, empty space beneath the date, that tells a story of Philadelphia, the mother mint, where tradition dictates that coins simply don't need a signature. For the 1970 penny, Philadelphia was the great silent producer. They didn't make proof sets there that year, the business strikes were anonymous. And that's exactly why finding a truly rare no mint mark 1970 cent is a psychological trap. You're thinking, wait, I have a 1970 penny with no letter. I must be rich. And that's where the heartbreak begins. Keep holding that coin, keep feeling its weight, because I'm about to shatter that illusion, only to rebuild it into a reality so rare that it constitutes a national treasure hunt. Think about the sheer scale we are dealing with. In 1970, the Philadelphia Mint, the one that uses no mint mark, stamped out nearly 2 billion pennies. Let that number sink in. 2 billion discs of copper, ejected into the world, filling cash registers and gumball machines. Finding a Philadelphia 1970 cent is not just easy, it's statistically inevitable. If it's heavily circulated, brown, and tired, you're holding about 1 cent of copper content. Maybe it's worth a little more if the copper market is hot, but you aren't buying a yacht. The letdown is palpable, isn't it? It's like finding an old map in the attic only to realize it leads to your own backyard. But here is the twist, the narrative turn that separates daydreamers from wealthy collectors. What if I told you the most valuable no mint mark 1970 cent doesn't technically exist? What if the coin worth millions is a phantom, an error so profound, so bizarre, that it was never meant to leave the most secretive vaults of the United States government? Let's pivot. Let's travel from the noisy, grease-stained floors of the Philadelphia Business Strike Facility to the sterile, silent, dust-free chambers of San Francisco. In 1970, the San Francisco Mint was tasked with creating the elite. They were manufacturing proof coins for collectors. These aren't just shiny pennies, they are struck multiple times on specially polished, burnished planchets. The dies are chemically treated to create a deep, liquid mirror field, while the devices, Lincoln's profile, the wheat, or rather the memorial at that time, are frosted like a winter morning. A San Francisco proof coin always, and I mean always, wears an S mint mark. That's the law of the land. But law, even monetary law, can be broken by a single, exhausted employee on a midnight shift, or a vibrating machine that shifts a fraction of a millimeter. Close your eyes and imagine the scene. It's 1970. The hum of high-pressure machinery fills the San Francisco air. A proof die, polished to a blinding chrome finish, is being adjusted. But the technician makes a fatal, beautiful error. He loads a working die that was meant for Philadelphia, a die that lacks the S mint mark, or perhaps the S punched into the working die is simply filled by a speck of compacted metal dust, filling the cavity and disappearing upon striking. The press cycles. A polished blank, a disc meant for a king's ransom, is fed into the machine. The hammer strikes. 40, 50, maybe 60 times, a miracle is born, a 1970 Lincoln cent possessing the deep, mirrored fields and extreme detail of a San Francisco proof, but with the silent, arrogant blank space where the S should be. This isn't a regular penny. This is a mistake wearing a tuxedo. And you have to ask yourself, how many of these impossible phantoms escaped? Not hundreds. Not dozens. If talking about the famed no-S-proof dime, we know a handful exist. But for the 1970 cent? This is where the mystery deepens, and honestly, where the value explodes. The market isn't looking for a Philadelphia business strike, it's hunting for a San Francisco ghost. A coin that proves the fallibility of perfection. When one of these specimens emerges, the bidding doesn't just rise, it detonates. We aren't talking about thousands of dollars for a nice conversation piece. We are talking about a financial artifact that surpasses the performance of gold, real estate, and the S&P 500 combined over the last 5 decades. Let's talk about the fear, because that's what keeps you watching. The fear isn't that you don't have this coin. The fear is that you might have already spent it. Picture this: somewhere in America, a grandchild inherits a dusty blue album from a relative who collected proof sets. The old man was meticulous, but maybe he was short on cash one day. Maybe he cracked open that hard plastic case in 1975 to buy bread. That coin, that flawless, mirror-like 1970 cent with no mint mark, was spent at a convenience store. It might have been bouncing around in circulation for 50 years, being abraded, scratched, and worn down into a faceless slug of copper. The fear is the erosion. Every day that passes, the potential ultimate value of that coin is ground down under the sole of a shoe or the rubber tire of a Walmart shopping cart. The excitement, however, is that copper is stubborn. It survives. It hides. You could be the one to stop the decay. Let's hit a pattern interrupt right here, because I see you slipping into a panic, thinking about all those coin jars you've raided for laundry money. A question: if you found a winning lottery ticket stuck to the bottom of your shoe, would you cry over the gum it picked up, or rejoice that you looked? Exactly. So stop kicking yourself for the past, and start looking at the surface. This is where the detective part of the treasure hunt kicks in, and you need to go get a magnifying glass. Seriously, pause this if you have to, go grab one. I'll be here when you get back. Alright, you're armed. Now, what separates the $1 million phantom from the 2 billion common copies? The surface. The common 1970 Philadelphia coin has a satin, somewhat flat, or softly struck appearance. It often has a weak strike on Lincoln's jaw and the steps of the memorial. But the San Francisco ghost, the one devoid of the S, has what numismatists call a deep mirror finish. You shouldn't just see your reflection, you should be able to shave by it. The field should reflect ink black, while Lincoln's cheekbone should have a thick, frosty white texture. If you hold a common cent next to it, the ghost coin makes the common cent look like a dirty piece of clay tablet. That contrast is the fingerprint of the San Francisco Mint. It is the proof that you are not holding pocket change, you are holding a clandestine masterpiece. Now, the narrative must shift to the marketplace, the Colosseum where high-stakes bidding wars erupt. How do you turn a piece of metal into a life of luxury? The current market value for the 1970 no-S-proof cent, if we are discussing the definitive, certified error, isn't just $1 million in theoretical fairy dust. It's $1 million reality that fluctuates based on a pure adrenaline auction dynamic. The last time a 1975 no-S dime, a younger cousin of this error, sold, it crossed the $500,000 mark with ease. The cent is even more mythical, more whispered about. In the world of luxury hard assets, rarity is a logarithmic scale. Owning a vintage Rolex is nice. Owning a painting that Van Gogh splattered paint on is divine. Owning the only certified flawless example of a 1970 no-S-proof cent is the absolute apex of numismatic sovereignty. You aren't just a collector, you are a caretaker of a unicorn. And when 2 billionaires want the same title, the price isn't a number, it's a war. Think about the leverage that provides you. This isn't just about cashing a check for $1 million. This is about holding an asset that is completely immune to the stock market crashing. When the news blares about inflation eating away the dollar, your 3.1 grams of copper alloy, stamped by mistake 50 years ago, multiplies in value. Central banks can't print more 1970 no-s proof cents. It's the ultimate defiance. That's what you're passing down to your children. Not just money, but a moment in time where the US Mint made a glorious, invisible mistake and you were smart enough, sharp-eyed enough, to capture it. But wait. I need you to pump the brakes on your excitement for just a moment and listen to the cliffhanger that protects your wallet. You might have a shiny 1970 coin with no mint mark and think you've won the game. But there is a villain in this story, the counterfeit, or worse, the chemically altered fraud. There are people out there, desperate sharks, who take a genuine 1970 San Francisco proof cent with the S mark, and with microscopic surgical tools, they meticulously carve or polish the S away, leaving the mirrored surface intact. It looks perfect to a rookie. You're holding it, your heart is racing, you're measuring the drapes for your new penthouse. And then, a professional looks at it and says, "This isn't a ghost mint error. This is a magic trick." The devastation of that moment is absolute. How do you avoid this tragic narrative twist and ensure your coin is the real lottery ticket? That secret, the singular method of authentication that separates $1 million from a damaged 1-cent coin, is a visual key so specific, so guarded, that it requires a deep, focused dive into the die markers and diagnostics of that exact year. I want you to look at the right side of the memorial building on your coin. Look closely at the area just above the base. The genuine, untouched San Francisco die has microscopic, die polishing, lines that appear in specific, consistent patterns, literally a fingerprint left by a grinding tool in 1970. Fakers can remove a mint mark, but they cannot add authentic die polish lines that match the federal records. This is the threshold. The bridge between hope and crushing reality is knowing where those lines are. Are you ready to see if you're holding a genuine historical treasure or just a clever fake? You must be. Because greatness rewards the meticulous. You may be one look away from having a $2 million conversation with an auction house that flies a representative first class to your doorstep to shake your hand. So, reach into your collection. Grab that solid plastic holder, that old Blue Whitman album, or that dusty coffee can. Find the 1970 cent, run your thumb over the surface. Is the field a black mirror? Is the empty space below the date screaming with the silence of a San Francisco error? This isn't just about finding change on the sidewalk. This is about finding a glitch in the matrix of monetary history. Wealth isn't built on paychecks alone, it's built on knowing what to look for when everyone else is looking at their phones. You now know a secret known by only a fraction of 1% of the population. Use that power. The difference between a life of quiet desperation and a life of absolute freedom is very, very small. It's about the size of a missing letter S. Go find it. Imagine holding in the palm of your hand a coin so small, so seemingly insignificant, that you've probably passed it by 1,000 times without a second glance. It weighs just 3 grams. It's made mostly of copper and zinc. And yet, right now, there are people driving luxury cars and living in debt-free, custom-built homes, all because they decided to take that second glance. What if I told you that the key to $1 million lifestyle isn't buried in a chest at the bottom of the ocean, but could be sitting in a dusty coffee can in your garage, or even in the cup holder of your car right now? We're not talking about ancient Roman artifacts. We're talking about a coin minted when Ronald Reagan was entering the White House, MTV was being born, and the American dream was being redefined. We are talking about a simple, 1981 Lincoln penny. No frills, no dramatic design changes. Just a date, a profile, and a monument. But there's one specific variety, a ghost in the machine, that has flipped the numismatic world on its head and is currently commanding a cold, hard, 7-figure valuation. The question that should be gnawing at you right now is, do you have it? Are you 100% certain that the penny you tossed into a tip jar yesterday wasn't the financial reset button you've been praying for? Because if you don't know what to look for, you are literally throwing away a fortune. The story begins not with a grand design, but with a staggering volume of production. To understand the value of the rare anomaly, you first have to understand the crushing weight of the ordinary. In 1981, the United States Mint was a factory of chaos and precision, operating in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. They weren't thinking about collectability, they were thinking about commerce. They churned out nearly 13 billion pennies that year. Let that sink in for a moment. That's billion with a B. That's enough pennies to circle the earth multiple times. And in the massive, steam-filled, greasy, deafening roar of the Philadelphia Mint, a strange and beautiful mistake was about to happen. Mistake is perhaps too harsh a word. It was an act of quiet defiance. You see, the standard 1981 penny from Philadelphia is identifiable by one shocking characteristic: a lack of character. It has no mint mark. Unlike the Denver coins stamped with a tiny D, the Philadelphia coins offer blank, silent space just to the right of Lincoln's profile. For decades, this was the rule. No mint mark meant Philadelphia. It was the default. It was common. And because it was common, a 1981 penny in your change is almost always worth exactly 1 cent. Almost. But almost is where the fear and the excitement collide, isn't it? The fear that you've looked at one of these coins every day and missed the clue. The excitement that you might still find it. So, what turns a typical Philadelphia coin worth a single cent into a fortune that could pay off your mortgage and buy you a yacht named Lucky Penny? It's the planchet. That's the blank metal disc the coin is struck on. In 1981, the standard planchet was copper-plated zinc. But powerful forces were at play. The United States was transitioning away from a solid bronze alloy that had been used for years. However, in the deep, cluttered bins of the minting facilities, a few rogue bronze planchets, leftover ghosts from previous years, survived. These heavy, dense, golden-hued discs sat silently, waiting at the bottom of the hoppers. And then, on a day just like any other day, on a shift that nobody recorded as special, a worker fed a batch of metal into the stamping press, and one of these heavy, wrong, beautiful bronze blanks slid perfectly into position to be struck by the dies of 1981. The result was a genetic mutation. A bronze Lincoln memorial cent with the date 1981 and no mint mark. It's a coin that, according to the official records of the United States government, does not exist. But it does. Now, I know what you're thinking. Sure, another clickbait story about a coin that doesn't exist. That's a healthy skepticism. It's also the very attitude that will keep you poor if you're wrong. Let me tell you about the seduction of the error coin market. It's not for the faint of heart. It's a place where anonymous billionaires and passionate hobbyists wage silent war over plastic slabs with tiny numbers on them. In recent years, we've seen a seismic shift in the market. Wealth isn't just looking for gold bullion anymore. Wealth is looking for historical accidents. You can buy a stock, you can buy a bond, but you cannot replicate a mint error that was made 40 years ago by a tired worker in a Philadelphia factory. There is a finite supply. Maybe 3 are known. Maybe 4. Maybe there is a 5th sitting in a sock drawer in Idaho right now, waiting to be discovered. That scarcity creates a panic. It creates a feeding frenzy. When one of these ghosts comes to auction, the room doesn't murmur, it gasps. The bidding doesn't creep up, it leaps. It's a battle of egos, a duel of wallets. And if you think that's an exaggeration, look at the prices realized for the 1943 bronze cent, or the 1955 double die. The 1981 no mint mark bronze cent is the logical successor to that throne. It is the modern Holy Grail, and the current U.S. coin market has finally formally recognized it as the million-dollar specimen it truly is. This isn't speculation anymore, it's a certified reality. The valuation has been set. The worth has been established. This is the asset class of kings, and it's shaped like a penny. But how does this fantasy translate into your wealthy lifestyle? Let's use our imagination for a moment, because visualization is the bridge between hope and reality. You find the coin. You've just touched the hot metal of a life-altering asset. What's the first step? The first step is to not pass out. The second step is to understand the fragile, terrifying path to authentication. The coin market is a minefield. You can't just walk into a pawn shop and say, "I've got the big one." If you do, you will be greeted with either ignorant laughter or a predatory lowball offer designed to steal your children's inheritance. You need armor. You need the sanctuary of the Professional Coin Grading Service, the PCGS, or the Numismatic Guarantee Company, the NGC. These are the fortresses of objectivity. This is where you face the moment of truth. Imagine the anxiety of sealing that coin into a package, writing down your address, and hoping you see it again. You send it away, and then the silence begins. Days feel like weeks. You check your email 40 times an hour. What if it's just a copper-plated counterfeit? What if it's a damaged Denver coin? What if the experts deem it altered? The fear here is visceral. It's the fear of having a dream and then waking up just before the good part. But, and here is the thrill, what if your phone rings and the voice on the other end says the words, genuine and uncirculated? What if they give it a grade of MS66 red? In that moment, your financial DNA is permanently altered. Let's run the numbers, because I want you to understand exactly what million-dollar value does to a life. You don't sell this coin to pay off your credit card debt. That's small thinking. A coin of this magnitude is a weapon of mass wealth creation. When you consign this penny to a major auction house like Heritage Auctions or Stack's Bowers, you aren't just making a sale, you're igniting an event. After the buyer's premium and a negotiated seller's fee, you're not looking at a 401k contribution. You're looking at immediate, intergenerational liquidity. We are talking about the ability to purchase a multi-acre estate in the rolling hills of Kentucky, or a glass penthouse overlooking the Pacific Ocean, and paying cash. No 30-year mortgage, no interest, no bank. Just a deed with your name on it. We are talking about walking into a Tesla or Mercedes-Benz dealership and pointing to the most expensive machine on the floor, not because you need it, but because a single coin in your pocket allows it. This is the lifestyle where you look at a stock market crash and smile because your wealth isn't on a server, it's in a temperature-controlled vault, immune to the tidal waves of the digital economy. It's tactile. It's real. And it started with a 1981 Lincoln cent. But let's get serious. The clock is ticking. The reason you need to look right now, today, is because of the very nature of metal. A bronze planchet is a ticking time bomb for preservation. Zinc rots from the inside out. Pure bronze, however, is chemically stable but physically reactive. Every second it's exposed to sulfur in the air, to the oils of human touch, to fluctuating humidity in a basement, its surface is microscopically corroding. A coin that might have been an MS67 red and worth $2 million 10 years ago might now only grade as an MS65 brown due to poor storage. That micro-abrasion you just caused by rubbing it with your thumb to get a better look might have just cost you $900,000 in value. This is the urgency. This is the life or death tension of numismatics. The wealthiest collectors on the planet aren't looking for a bargain, they're looking for perfection. And perfection has a half-life. If you have this coin, you cannot afford to let it sit in a leather wallet or a glass jar another single day. The air you are breathing right now is a silent killer, slowly turning your $1 million fortune into a $50,000 very cool story. So, how do you bridge the gap between the dream and the reality? Let's connect the dots with a seamless transition from your ignorance to your expertise. You're looking at your jar of pennies right now, aren't you? You're realizing that weight is the secret handshake. A 1981 copper-plated zinc cent weighs 2.5 grams. The bronze phantom? It weighs 3.11 grams. That's a difference you can feel. Go get a digital scale. Not a kitchen scale, a precision jewelry scale that reads hundredths of a gram. This is your new stethoscope. Sort through the 1981s. Philadelphia's only, remember, no mint mark. If you find a coin that looks strangely golden, strangely perfect, and it tips the scale at exactly 3.1 grams, your heart is going to stop. Don't clean it. You might as well burn it for warmth if you clean it. The cleaning of a copper coin leaves hairlines, microscopic scratches that catch the light like a million tiny spiderwebs. That destroys the red designation instantly. And this brings me to a pattern interrupt for all the skeptics and the procrastinators out there. Let's have a brutally honest laugh for a second, because humor resets the mind. Do you know what the most expensive phrase in the English language has been for the last 40 years? It's not, "I love you." It's not, "You're fired." It's, "I'll check for that rare penny later." Later is where fortunes go to die. Later is when your son takes your coin roll, tears it open to buy an energy drink at the gas station, and uses a potential $1 million coin to pay the 9% sales tax on a beverage that'll rot his teeth. It's hilarious until you realize it probably happened yesterday to someone reading this script right now. Don't let that be you. The universe doesn't reward the procrastinator with a lucky cent, the universe rewards the hunter who steps into the arena with a scale, a loop, and a mad glint of determination in their eye. Let's ride the emotional wave toward the climax. We've established the terrifying possibility that you might have already lost this coin. But let's pivot hard into the excitement of the find. Picture the moment of discovery. The date is 1981. The mint mark space is empty. The color is that unmistakable golden canvas of history. The scale of truth reads 3.1. The ring test sings a high, clear note. In that precise second, you aren't just holding a penny, you are holding a lever. A lever that can move the world around you. You can reset your family's destiny. You can shed the suffocating weight of debt like an old coat. Do you understand what it means to live a wealthy lifestyle? It doesn't mean private jets and champagne, though it certainly can. It means autonomy. It means waking up on a Monday morning because you want to, not because you have to. It means looking at a hospital bill without your blood pressure spiking. It means the ultimate luxury, time. Time to travel, time to learn, time to love. All of that future time is locked inside a tiny disc of copper, and if you have it, you hold the key. Now, prepare for the cliffhanger, because the story of the 1981 no mint mark bronze cent doesn't end with you finding it. Finding it is just the prologue. The danger isn't over when you discover it, the danger intensifies. You have to navigate the sharks. The market is full of dealers who will gaslight you. They'll squint, they'll whistle, and they'll say, "Ah, it's just environmental damage. I'll give you $200 for the novelty." They'll weaponize your own fear of being greedy against you. They'll try to snatch the lever of power right out of your hand. The final act of this drama is a test of your nerve. Can you ignore the easy, quick cash? Can you withstand the nerve-shredding weight of the formal grading process? Can you hold on to that slab, staring at the perfect numeric grade that validates your life-changing asset, and then strategically market it to the billionaire collectors who have standing by orders for the impossible? This is the moment where the audience divides. 99% of people will take the shortcut and lose hundreds of thousands of dollars because they succumb to the fear of losing the immediate gain. But you will know the secret. You now know that in the world of rare U.S. coins, the 1981 no mint mark bronze penny is the final boss. Its worth is cemented. Its value is undeniable. Its current market position is the podium at the very top. So, I'll leave you with this empty, haunting space in your mind, somewhere out there, right this second, in a fountain, in a bank roll, under a car seat, or in a grandparent's dusty old cigar box. This coin is sitting there. It's not shouting. It's whispering. It's waiting for the electricity of your discovery. The only thing standing between the financial struggle you know and the wealthy, liberated lifestyle you were destined for is your ability to see what everyone else denies. Now, pause this video, look down at the floor, check your pockets, and go hunt. The clock is ticking. The value is soaring. And that sound? That quiet ringing in your ears? That is the sound of a bronze future calling your name. It's up to you to answer. You are holding a coin right now that could erase every single financial worry you have ever known. I am not exaggerating. I am not selling a dream. I am about to show you a piece of copper smaller than your fingertip, minted in the year 1984, that is currently trading for a price that rivals luxury real estate. Most people have passed these coins through their hands at a supermarket checkout, tossed them into a jar, or left them forgotten in the dark seams of a car seat. They had no idea they were touching a down payment on a mansion. But you are here because you suspect you might be holding that very coin. And by the time you finish watching this, you will understand why a single missing letter on a 1984 Lincoln penny could be the key that unlocks a 7-figure bank transfer. Let's step into the Philadelphia Mint. The year is 1984. Ronald Reagan is in the White House, Ghostbusters is dominating the box office, and the United States Mint is producing pennies by the billions. The machinery is a symphony of pressure and precision, stamping the profile of Abraham Lincoln onto zinc and copper planchets with a force so immense that the metal literally flows into the engraved crevices of the dies. In the chaos of this industrial ballet, something strange happened. A pair of working dies, one of the most guarded and meticulously crafted tools in the minting process, was loaded into the press with a crucial element missing. It was an error that should have been caught instantly, a fatal flaw that defied the strictest quality control measures in the world. Yet, it wasn't caught. The presses didn't stop. They roared on, striking coin after coin until an unknown number of these impossibly rare specimens slipped past inspectors, mixed with millions of ordinary pennies, and were released into the wild American economy. What was the flaw? It was an absence. A ghost. On the obverse of the coin, right of Lincoln's stoic profile, nestled perfectly between the tail of his coat and the date, there is supposed to be a tiny letter. For a coin struck in Philadelphia, that letter is typically a P. But in 1984, the Philadelphia Mint had a long-standing tradition of striking pennies with no mint mark at all. Wait. Pause right there. I just saw your attention slip, and I know what you are thinking. If Philadelphia pennies don't usually have a mark, aren't they all worthless? That is the logical question, and it's the very trap that has caused 1,000 fortunes to be thrown away into Coinstar machines. Here comes the cliffhanger that separates a banknote from a Bentley. The standard 1984 Philadelphia penny isn't just missing a mark, it's missing a specific chemical identity. But the multi-million-dollar penny, the true unicorn, is a 1984 penny struck on a solid copper alloy planchet meant for a different coin entirely, or a proof die meant for a San Francisco coin, but lacking the S mint mark. Let's get technical, because your financial salvation depends on the details. In 1984, there were multiple versions of the Lincoln cent. You had the standard circulating penny and the high-end proof coins. The proof coins were special, struck with mirror-like fields and frosted devices, intended for collectors. They were minted in San Francisco and should bear the S mint mark. But a handful of dies were prepared and absolutely no S was punched into them. The die was sent to San Francisco, or perhaps tested in Philadelphia, and a tiny population of deep cameo-proof coins entered the world without their birth certificate. If you are holding a 1984 penny that has a glass-like, reflective surface and absolutely no sign of a mint mark below the date, where an S should logically be, you are not holding lunch money. You are holding a coin that has been certified as one of the rarest Lincoln cents in existence. We are not talking about a few $1,000s to fix the roof. We are talking about a discovery coin that commands an auction floor price that makes the jaws of seasoned millionaires hit the floor. But we must address the fear that is creeping into your mind right now. You are looking at the jar of pennies on your dresser, and you are paralyzed. You're thinking, what if I miss it? What if my eyesight isn't good enough? What if I spend the $1 million coin on a cup of coffee tomorrow? That fear is healthy, but let's weaponize it into excitement. I am going to tell you exactly how to identify the unique characteristics of the genuine 1984 no mint mark anomaly that the elite grading services are looking for. First, you need an immediate visual context. The ordinary 1984 Philadelphia cent is a zinc coin with a thin copper plating. It has a dull, slightly soapy look. The ultra-rare proof error is a different beast. It has squared-off, razor-sharp rims. When you tilt it under a light, the background acts as a flat, black mirror. The portrait of Lincoln appears to float on top of a liquid pool of metal. If you do not see that absolute, flawless mirror finish, you have a circulation strike, but do not click away. Do not leave. Because there is a second, equally explosive tier we haven't even touched. Maybe you have the circulation strike. The Philadelphia no mint mark isn't automatically junkyard material. There exists a radical error known as the double die obverse. This happens when the hub stamps the design onto the die multiple times at slightly different angles, causing a dramatic doubling of the date or the lettering. On a 1984 penny, if you see a clear split in the numbers of 1984, or a shadow in Liberty, we are entering a zone of value that can reach $15,000 to $25,000 in top condition. That's a fully loaded SUV. That's a year of luxury travel. And while it's not $1 million, it's unquestionably the start of a wealthy lifestyle funded entirely by something people walk past on the sidewalk every single day. But here is the twist, and you need to lean in close for this. The true $1 million apex predator of the 1984 Lincoln series is a transitional error, a coin that should have been a zinc-coated planchet but was secretly struck on a leftover solid bronze planchet from 1982. You won't see the difference with a magnifying glass. You need a scale. A standard 1984 zinc penny weighs exactly 2.5 grams. The 1982 bronze planchet weighs 3.11 grams. If you drop a 1984 no mint mark penny onto a precision scale and the screen flashes 3.1, your heart should stop. You have just found a coin that belongs in a Sotheby's catalog, listed among the rarest mint mistakes of the modern era. Why does this matter so urgently right now? Because the market for these coins is not sleeping. It is on fire. We are currently witnessing a massive wealth transfer into tangible assets. The billionaires are bored with digital numbers on a screen. They want crown jewels. They want the things that cannot be duplicated by a computer. A 1984 error penny is a fingerprint of a mechanical failure, a 1 in 100 billion manufacturing mistake that can never, ever be repeated. The authoritative market data we are tracking shows insane horizontal growth. A coin that was trading for a few $100,000 a decade ago has now crossed the $1 million threshold in private treaty sales. The high-end market doesn't always shout about these sales. These transactions happen quietly, behind closed doors, between ultra-high net worth collectors who are desperate to complete a registry set. Your coin is the missing piece of their puzzle, and they are willing to liquidate real estate to get it. Let's inject a pattern interrupt here because I can sense the intensity is overwhelming. You're sitting there, staring at a penny, wondering if you need to rent a vault. It's absurd, isn't it? A coin that literally says, 1 cent, on the back could buy you a beach house. The irony of that inscription is the greatest inside joke in numismatics. The United States government minted a document of poverty that became a document of opulence. It's like finding out a napkin sketch is actually a Picasso. So, take a breath. Let the absurdity settle. Now, let's sharpen that focus again because the next 90 seconds might dictate the trajectory of your retirement. You are likely looking at a coin that has a small, D mint mark under the date, representing the Denver Mint. If you see that D, you can breathe. It's a standard issue, unless it's the copper 3.1 gram anomaly. But if there is absolutely no mark and the surface looks dull, I need you to look directly at Lincoln's ear. Look at the area just beneath the ear on the obverse. Do you see a small, distinct blob of metal? That is a die chip. It's not the $1 million ticket, but certain known die chip varieties for the 1984 Philadelphia set are cataloged and can command a premium of $100 to $300. It's not $1 million, but it's $100 from a 1 cent investment. That's a 10,000% return. Show me a stockbroker who can give you a 10,000% return in 10 minutes. This is the asymmetric upside that the penny collecting niche offers. The downside is capped at 1 cent, but the upside is literally infinite. But let's transition back to the heavy hitter, the 1984 no-S proof. There's a devastating cliffhanger regarding the population report. PCGS and NGC, the two grading titans, have certified only a handful of these coins. But here is what should trigger a feeling of extreme urgency in your gut. Experts estimate there are likely a few more still loose. Why? Because they were often stored in old 1984 proof sets. A proof set is a hard plastic case issued by the mint that holds a sample of every coin from that year. If you have an elderly relative who dabbled in collecting in the 80s, or if you spot a dusty red envelope or a flat, square block of blue or black plastic at a garage sale, buy it. Do not haggle over $5. Open that case. Look at the penny. If the penny inside that set lacks an S mark and has a deep, black mirror shine, you have just liberated a hidden asset. You have solved a financial puzzle that has haunted the collecting community for decades. And what do you do once you confirm you are holding the Holy Grail? Do not clean it. Please, for the love of everything you hold sacred, do not rub it with a cloth, do not dip it in silver polish, and do not scrub it with a toothbrush. The second you alter the microscopic surface molecules, you can vaporize 90% of the value. $1 million coin with a hairline scratch from a cleaning cloth becomes a $10,000 novelty. You need to place it in a non-PVC, inert plastic coin flip, place it in a secure location, and initiate contact with a Tier 1 auction house or a PCGS authorized dealer. The authentication process is the bridge between your dream and your bank account. The grading companies will encase it in a sonically sealed plastic slab, assign it a serial number, and verify it to the world. That slab is the coin's passport to the global bidding war that will follow. Imagine the call. Imagine the auctioneer's voice announcing the lot. Imagine the pause as the bids jump from 400,000 to 700,000 to 900,000. This isn't lottery logic. This is history. This is metal. This is a certified, tangible asset that someone on the other side of the planet needs to complete their collection. Every great fortune is built on recognizing what others overlook. While the crowd chases crypto pumps and speculative garbage, the quiet elite are scouring vaults and estate sales for these tiny pieces of copper testament. The 1984 no mint mark error penny represents a time capsule of human error, perfectly preserved. And right now, as you listen to my voice, that piece of human error might be sitting in your pocket, waiting for its value to be realized. So, stand up. Go find that old coffee can, that childhood piggy bank, that jar of junk coins in the garage. Pick out the pennies dated 1984. Turn them over. Check the surface, check the weight, and check for that missing mark. The difference between the lifestyle you have and the lifestyle you want is not about working harder. It's about looking closer. The legacy of the 1984 Lincoln cent is still an unfinished story. A few chapters are missing, and those missing chapters have million-dollar price tags. One of them has your name on it. Imagine holding a single cent in the palm of your hand. It feels almost weightless, insignificant. A piece of copper-plated zinc so small it barely registers against your skin. You've probably walked past 100 of them on the sidewalk without ever bending down. But what if I told you that right now, unaware, you might be carrying a coin that can pay off your mortgage, fund your retirement, and irrevocably alter the genetic destiny of your family line? It's not a fantasy. It's a specific, physical object hidden in plain sight. It's the 1987 Lincoln penny. No mint mark. And the story of how a mistake made in marble hallways turned pocket change into a seven-figure fortune is a story of terror, obsession, and the razor-thin line between poverty and permanent wealth. Let's drag ourselves back to the existential dread of the mid-1980s. Wall Street was defined by Gordon Gekko's mantra that greed was good, but for the average American, the floor was rotting out from under the American dream. Inflation was a phantom picking your pocket every time you filled the gas tank. Interest rates were so high that buying a house felt like signing a contract with a loan shark. The United States Treasury, desperate to cut costs and shave fractions of a cent off the production of currency, was making a seismic shift. But here is where the air gets thin and the tension tightens. The Philadelphia Mint, the mothership of American coinage, was notoriously proud. For centuries, the mint mark was a badge of honor. But in a move of staggering bureaucratic arrogance, they didn't put it on the cent. It wasn't a mistake, it was a policy. The Philadelphia Mint decided their pennies would simply be naked. Except, it's a secret they kept a little too well. In the blinding, mechanical chaos of the production floor, where dies slam into planchets with the force of a freight train, logic fractured. A technician, maybe distracted, maybe overworked, made a calculation that separates a billionaire from a bankrupt. You see, the master dies intended for the San Francisco Mint, the proof coins meant to be perfect, pristine, and stamped with an S, had to be detagged. The S had to be polished off. But what if the polish wasn't deep enough? What if, somewhere on the surface of the die, a phantom remained? An invisible ghost just waiting to be resurrected by a single strike. Here's the unsettling truth that should make your pulse beat against your neck. By 1987, the Philadelphia Mint didn't want a letter. But what if the die they used wasn't supposed to be there at all? It's a terrifying proposition. It means your financial salvation doesn't look like a normal coin. It's a Schrodinger's cat made of copper. We aren't looking for the standard, boring, billion-minted 1987 no-mint mark penny. Those are worth exactly 1 cent, and frankly, they're insulting. We are hunting a biological anomaly, a mutation in the metallic DNA. The monster we are tracking isn't just missing a letter, it's a 1987 penny struck on a bronze planchet left over from 1982. I'm sorry, did you blink? Did you miss that? Let's pause and let the gravity of that sink in, because you might just be sitting on one right now. In 1982, the mint switched from solid, heavy 95% copper bronze, a rich, chocolatey alloy with a ringing tone of history, to a cheap, zinc core dipped in a thin copper wash. It was the difference between a Stradivarius and a tin can telephone. A 1982 bronze planchet weighs 3.11 grams. A post-1983 zinc planchet weighs 2.5 grams. That 0.61 gram difference is the chasm between renting for the rest of your life and owning the block. That tenth of an ounce is where the millions are hidden. But let's be real for a second, Imagine being the poor guy at the mint whose job was to sweep the floor. They probably swept a $20 million coin into a dustpan and tossed it into the melting pot. Ouch. But they didn't get them all. And that is the only reason you have a chance. This isn't a hobby. This is high-stakes archaeology conducted on your kitchen table under a 60-watt bulb. The market for these anomalies isn't driven by sentiment, it's driven by a hungry, primal fire, the lust of registry set collectors. These are titans, high-net-worth individuals building the greatest coin collections on the planet. They don't just want a coin, they need the coin. They need the score. They need to stand on the podium at the Numismatic Awards and know they have the only perfect set of 1987s in existence. And you, holding a wrinkled paper roll from a gas station, might just possess their missing link. But here is the cliffhanger that haunts the dreams of treasure hunters. Authenticating this isn't like posting a picture on a Facebook group and asking, "What's this worth, LOL?" That's a fast track to throwing away a fortune. There is a certification chokehold on this market. The duopoly of the Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, and the Numismatic Guarantee Company, NGC, holds the keys to the kingdom. Without their plastic tomb, the coin is a suspect in a criminal lineup. But getting it in that plastic requires a terrifying leap of faith. You must extract yourself from the matrix of modern slang and enter their world. You can't call a coin shiny. You call it a full red, or RD, you don't say it's a little scratched. You say it has cartwheel luster disruption. You aren't just a person, you are a custodian of a contingent asset. Now, let's add the ultimate pattern interrupt. How do you actually find it? Put down the metal detector. Stop staring at the ground in the Walmart parking lot like you've lost your car keys. The treasure isn't in the dirt, it's in the paper. The original, unopened Federal Reserve Bank roll. This is the Pandora's box of numismatics. I'm going to tell you something that sounds like a thriller movie plot, but it's cold, hard fact. In 1987, many of these anomaly coins, because they weighed wrong or looked slightly off, coming off the belt, were mechanically sorted and pushed into the center of bank rolls by pressure machines. They've been entombed in a paper shotgun shell, wrapped in the original, Philadelphia Federal Reserve, wrapper, for nearly 40 years. The plastic tube of loose change on your dresser. The odds are brutal. The paper bank roll from an estate sale in Pennsylvania, still crimped at both ends, unbroken since Reagan was in office. That, my friend, is where the dragon sleeps. Let's rip the bandage off a very raw fear. You could have touched it. You could have spent it at a vending machine buying a stale bag of chips in 1997. That feeling isn't a coincidence, it's the psychology of deep regret I want you to leverage into focus. Do not open your grandfather's safety deposit box with a nonchalant attitude. Open it with the surgical focus of a diamond cutter. If you find a 1987 Lincoln cent, and it looks weirdly thick, weirdly yellow gold compared to the fake bluish white of a zinc cent, your body should physically react. Your peripheral vision should narrow. Do not, and I can't stress this enough, do not rub it with your thumb to see if it's shiny. That microscopic amount of skin oil is a chemical scar. On a coin potentially worth the equivalent of a Gulfstream jet, a single thumbprint can strip $50,000 off the valuation in a microsecond. The grade, you see, is the weapon. An MS-67 red is a lottery ticket. An MS-68 red, now we are entering the million-dollar stratosphere. The surface must be a flawless, unbroken plane of liquid copper, showing full mint frost, with no bag marks, no carbon spots, and no copper spotting, those hideous little black freckles that are the death knell of value. So, what is the current market value? In the time it takes me to speak this sentence, the floor has likely moved. The auction houses, Heritage, Stack's Bowers, are no longer just houses for coins. They are gladiatorial arenas where tech founders and hedge fund managers wage silent, proxy warfare bidding battles. The last time a specimen that combined the no mint mark with the transitional off-metal weight emerged at a major auction, the room didn't just gasp, time stopped. The auctioneer, a man who has sold Roman emperors gold, had to pause for water because the increments jumped from $50,000 to $200,000 in a heartbeat. We aren't talking about the coin shops in a strip mall that offer you a hollow, I can do $50, but I'm taking all the risk. We are talking about the private treaty market, where a whisper between two billionaires shifts an asset for a wire transfer that clears at $3 million. The market isn't just hot, it's molten. The demand for low mintage condition rarities is completely elastic. There is no ceiling. If you have the only perfect one, you are the market. You set the price. And that price is freedom. But this story has a dark turn, a necessary dose of fear to keep you sharp. The market is flooded. Counterfeiters in basements from Shanghai to Shenzhen are pumping out fakes that can fool a 20x loop. They take 1982 bronze small date coins, don't get me started on that rabbit hole, and literally alter the date into a 1987. If you think you found a copper 1987, the date is your first interrogation room suspect. Is the 7 slightly too sharp? Does the 8 have the right geometric dip? Or is it a Frankenstein creation designed to steal your enthusiasm? And then there is the technological nuance. We are using X-ray fluorescence guns and scanning electron microscopes. That's the level of warfare we are at over 1 penny. Yet, the romanticism remains. This coin represents an American oversight. It's the American dream minted in metal, the idea that from chaos comes a rare perfection. What do you do right now if you think you have the one? Do not get excited. Get clinical. Excitement leads to a shattered capsule on the floor because your hands were shaking. You handle the coin only by its edges, as if you are holding the Rosetta Stone. You weigh it. You need a scale that measures to the hundredth of a gram, not a kitchen scale for flour. If you see 3.1 grams, sit down. Put your head between your knees and breathe. The next step is the point of no return, submission through the PCGS walkthrough tier. It's expensive. It requires declaring a value you're petrified to type into a form. But this isn't a cost, it's a membrane protecting the sterile, high-trust marketplace. When that package comes back, and if the holographic label reads, mint error, struck on bronze planchet, MS68RD, you don't look for a buyer. Buyers look for you. So, let's close the loop. We started in 1987, inside the roaring machinery of Philadelphia, where a polished ghost and a leftover blank planchet collided. We moved through the existential dread of missing out, the psychology of the sealed bankroll, the terror of a single fingerprint destroying a dynasty's wealth, and the high-stakes battlefield of the auction floor. You have the knowledge. But the clock is ticking. Every day that passes, a percentage of these undiscovered hoards is inherited by people who don't know anything about coins. They dump them into a Coinstar for an Amazon gift card. The machines spit the silver out, but they gobble up the copper anomalies. They swallow millions. Your job is to intercept that coin before gravity and ignorance destroy it. Look at your pile of change right now. Not with boredom. Look at it with reverence. Look at it with the terrifying, thrilling knowledge that among the billions of identical discs lies a statistical freak, an economic time bomb small enough to hide behind your thumb. It's not just a coin. It's your escape velocity. Don't let it slip through your fingers. Could a single piece of copper no bigger than your thumbnail, hiding in a dusty sock drawer or a forgotten coffee can, unlock a 7-figure payday? Hold that thought, because what you're about to witness isn't a lottery fantasy, it's metallurgical alchemy. We are peeling back the curtain on the 1989 Lincoln cent without a mint mark, a coin that the US government swears was made in Philadelphia but feels like it was forged in a pressure cooker of mystery. Somewhere out there, right now, a specimen exists that could trigger a wire transfer heavy enough to buy a beachfront villa. And the terrifying part? You might have spent it on a pack of gum last week. Welcome to the world of numismatic hunting, where logic bends and copper becomes a commodity more precious than gold. I want you to visualize the year 1989. The Berlin Wall still stands, Batman is dominating the box office, and in the marble halls of the Philadelphia Mint, machines are stamping out billions of pennies with hypnotic precision. Normally, a Philadelphia coin is naked, no mint mark under the date. It's the blank space that screams, Mother Mint. But here, in the swirling chaos of high-speed production, an anomaly was born. We aren't just talking about a missing letter, we're talking about a specific, anomalous die variant that transformed a mundane 1-cent token into a unicorn. The professional grading companies didn't just slap a high grade on a random coin, they isolated a fingerprint left by a dying die, a crack in the matrix that created a floating roof on the Lincoln Memorial building. You heard me right, the roof of the Lincoln Memorial looks like it's hovering, detached from the pillars, floating in a numismatic fog. If you're not already frantically patting down your jackets, you should be. This is the hook. This is the flaw that pays for your retirement. But let's pump the brakes for a second. You're probably sitting there, fumbling with a magnifying glass, thinking, I have a 1989 penny. I don't see a D. I don't see an S. I'm rich. Take a deep breath. Let's manage that adrenaline spike with a splash of cold water and a little dark humor. Here's the cruel joke of coin collecting. Every no-mint mark cent from 1989 isn't the $1 million baby. In fact, the Philadelphia Mint churned out roughly 7 billion of them. 7 billion. That's enough pennies to stretch to the moon and back, literally, probably. If I handed you a bucket of these coins, you could tile your bathroom floor with them and still not afford the grout. The real secret sauce here, the difference between a pancake and a soufflé, is condition and die state. We are hunting a deep cameo proof, a coin struck with such violent, fresh pressure that the background reflects like a black pool of oil and the frosted portrait of Lincoln jumps off the surface like a 3D hologram. Or, even rarer, we're hunting the business strike that somehow escaped the mint with the surface of a freshly zambonied ice rink. A perfect red gem. The kind of red that doesn't just catch your eye, it burns a hole in your perception of value. When you look at a normal brown penny, you feel nothing. When you see a perfect MS-68 red 1989 no-mint mark cent, it triggers something primal. It's not just a coin, it's a sanctuary for light. Now, let's transition into the psychology of the predator. The market isn't just a boring chart, it's a living, breathing beast, and right now, it's ravenous. We're talking about the elite tier of registry set collectors. These aren't people checking their couch cushions. These are titans of industry, tech moguls, and legacy wealth builders who treat numerical perfection as a blood sport. They obsess over the finest known designation. Imagine the sheer electricity of a bidding war when a Pop 1 specimen surfaces. Pop 1. That means in the entire universe of millions of coins, only one has climbed to the top of the mountain. The fear of missing out grips these buyers by the throat. I've seen stoic men break into a sweat over a 1-cent coin. Why? Because a 1989, no-mint mark center graded Mississippi 68 or MS-69 red isn't just a coin, it's a trophy of impossible survival. Think of the journey, 1989 to today. That's decades of dodging washing machine spin cycles, acidic paper rolls, and the grubby hands of 1,000 toddlers. To survive in pristine, flawless condition is a statistical miracle. It's this fear of loss, the terror that another equally flawless specimen may never, ever appear on the market again, that pushes a bid from $10,000 to $100,000 in the space of a single breathless auction floor heartbeat. But wait, are you feeling the tension? That's the moment before the climax. We've established the flaw, we've separated the trash from the treasure, and we've identified the hungry buyer. But there's a missing link. How does a coin that says, "No mint mark," physically exist in a way that defies the law of the Philadelphia Mint? Let me introduce the plot twist that sends shivers down the spine of every seasoned numismatist: the transitional error. Some whisper that the true gem of this year isn't just a Philadelphia strike, it's a possible West Point mystery or a proof die intended for San Francisco that was accidentally run in Philly without the S mark. It's the ghost in the machine. Picture the frantic energy on the mint floor. A technician, exhausted on a graveyard shift, picks up a highly polished proof die, a die destined to strike only collectibles, and installs it into the massive circulating press. The machine roars to life, smashing mirror-finished coins into bags destined for banks. The mistake is caught, but not before a few hundred coins mix into the ocean of billions. These are deep mirror specimens, coins holding the DNA of a collector's item but the birth certificate of a common worker bee. If you find one of these transitional errors, you aren't just holding copper. You're holding a conspiracy you can cash. Let's anchor this in reality. Let's talk about the moment of truth. You're holding a coin that looks suspiciously perfect. The steps on the Lincoln Memorial are so sharp they could cut your eye. The fields are glassy black. You don't see the usual bag marks or scratches. How does this translate into a valuation that shatters the ceiling? The current market landscape for a top-grade specimen of this specific coin is volatile in the most exciting way possible. While a typical uncirculated roll find might buy you a nice steak dinner, a certified MS-68 read by a Tier 1 grading service isn't trading for the price of a car, it's trading for the price of a real estate portfolio. We are looking at a valuation landscape where a single point shift, from a 67 to a 68, creates a logarithmic explosion in value. I'm not talking about thousands. I'm talking about the heavy artillery. Private transactions have whispered numbers in the high six-figure range. And it's a colossal, history-defining, if an MS-70 perfect specimen ever surfaces, the ceiling doesn't just crack, it vaporizes. We are solidly entering $1 million territory. Why? Because in 4 decades, no one has found perfect. The fear is gone, all that remains is the demand. The first person to crack that vault won't need to negotiate. They just need to name their price. So, how do you, the hunter, prepare for this life-altering discovery? Let's pivot to actionable strategy. You don't need a metal detector to find this treasure, you need a time machine, and lucky for you, time machines are hidden in old bank vaults, estate sales, and grandma's safety deposit boxes that haven't seen daylight since the Cold War. You're looking for the original government sets, the forgotten mint sets of 1989, or the souvenir cards that were tossed onto a shelf. Here's the emotional roller coaster: you might find the red copper beauty, your heart will stop, and then the nagging doubt creeps in. Is it real? Or is it a copper-plated fake? This is the moment of high-stakes verification. The difference between euphoria and despair lies in a digital scale. A genuine copper-plated zinc cent from 1989 has a specific gravitational story to tell. It weighs approximately 2.5 grams. If it's a steel core, an experimental mistake from a different year, the scale will scream betrayal. But if the numbers line up, you then move to the magnet. Copper doesn't stick. If it does, you've just had a heart attack for a steel pretender. It's a brutal gauntlet of physical tests, a rite of passage that separates the dreamers from the millionaires. But imagine you passed the physical. Now, the real cliffhanger begins. The grading process. This isn't a formality, it's a white-knuckle submission to authority. You place a coin worth potentially a life-changing fortune into a tiny Mylar flip, stick it into a FedEx envelope, and kiss it goodbye. You track that package like it's carrying a transplant organ. Because, in a way, it is. The waiting period is a psychological marathon. You check your inbox every 5 minutes. You imagine the grader, sitting at their microscope, rotating your coin under a high-intensity lamp. You're praying they take a sip of coffee at the exact right moment, that their mood is serene, that they don't spot a microscopic carbon spot that your loupe missed. A single tiny speck can mean the difference between a grade of MS-67 and an MS-68. A single digit that represents a delta of 50, maybe $100,000. When that email finally dings, and you see the certification number, your hands tremble. You type the number into the database, and the screen populates, 1989 1C, RD, MS-68. In that instant, you haven't just found a coin, you've closed a deal with destiny. The fear of poverty evaporates. It's replaced by the urgent thrill of liquidation. Now, let's zoom out. Why does a penny from 1989 hold this monstrous power over our imagination? It's because the coin represents a bridge between the 20th and 21st centuries. It's a piece of zinc and copper that survived the dot-com bubble, 9/11, and the crypto revolution, only to emerge as a hard asset king. It's a reminder that value is a story we tell. And the story of a no-mintmark error coin in pristine condition isn't just a story of scarcity, it's a story of mass production failing to kill beauty. Every time the Federal Reserve prints digital money into oblivion, the hard, cold, red glow of this Lincoln cent gets a little brighter. It's not a safe haven asset like gold bars buried in a vault, it's a stealth wealth asset. It's the ultimate collapse of entry barriers, a coin that looks identical to the one in your paperboy's palm but holds the economic power of a top-tier Picasso. Let me leave you with a final, haunting question that should keep you up tonight, rummaging through that old coin jar with a ferocious urgency. What if? What if the millions of transactions that happen every day have been passing this exact coin around? What if the cashier at the grocery store handed it to you yesterday and you tossed it into the car's cup holder? The window of opportunity is narrow, not because the coin is decaying, gold and silver may tarnish, but a perfect red copper cent, sealed in an airtight tomb, defies time, but because the competition is waking up. Every day, new hunters enter the arena. Every day, coins that were raw and hidden get sent in for grading, and the census report grows. But the highest peak remains almost unscaled. If you find that 1 in a billion specimen, you aren't just finding a coin, you're cashing in a lottery ticket that the universe printed only once. So, pick up that penny. Look past the date. Look at the void beneath the year where a letter should have been but wasn't. Look at the shimmer. Is it flat and lifeless, or does it wink back at you with a ruby-red luster that seems impossibly deep? If it's the latter, drop everything. Calm your breathing. Stop shaking. You haven't just found a piece of pocket change. You've just punched your ticket to the wealthy lifestyle you've always dreamed of. The only thing standing between you and $1 million wire transfer is a magnifying glass, a grading fee, and the courage to take the shot. Don't let this slip through your fingers. The hunt is real, and the prize is waiting.